A character with light hair shouts the name, Laura, with a shocked, blushing expression, holding up a hand. A young girl, Laura, kneels on the ground, remembering that Laura was her name in a previous life. She recalls this name belonged to a heroine in an RPG, someone who was fated to die. As she reflects on this, she hears someone shouting her name again. She composes herself, knowing one thing for certain, she will not be dying at this moment. She introduces herself as Laura, an 8-year-old girl. She clarifies that although she looks like a child, her soul is that of a 20-year-old, leaving her to wonder how this happened. This strange duality exists because she has just regained the memories of her previous life. In that past life, she was a normal student who was born and raised in Japan. Unfortunately, that life was cut rather short by an apparent accident. It was during that short life that she first encountered the name, Laura, not in person, but in front of the TV. She is shown sitting in front of a television set. The image flashes to a close-up of a handheld gaming device. She remembers Laura as a character in her favorite RPG title. A game dialogue box shows Laura greeting the player, remarking on the good weather. The name of that RPG was Last Brave. It featured a protagonist named Yuusha, who awakens the power of heroes to defeat the Demon King. Despite her fondness for it, the game received countless criticisms, with some Japanese reviews calling the story trite, unoriginal, or simply mediocre and boring after clearing it. But those criticisms meant nothing to her. She was deeply invested, even owning a strategy guide for Last Brave. The game featured a hero who grows while encountering various companions. A girl who cheers people up, a genius with great magical powers, and an ancient girl. It was considered a masterpiece by some, intertwining all possible elements with attractive characters, easy battle controls, and magnificent music. It was an almost perfect game, except for the widespread dissatisfaction concerning one specific person. That person was Laura Ampere, the very character she had now become in this world. In the game, Laura was born in Amy's village. She was the protagonist's childhood friend, an existence he eventually forgot during his journey, fading like an old picture. Laura remembers the specific scene, just the day before the protagonist, Lucas, departs on his journey. Laura confesses to him, saying she likes him. Lucas Ash simply thanks her. Laura tells him he doesn't have to reply right away. But their hands part as he leaves. The game's true heroine was someone the protagonist met during his journey. The hero fought desperately, holding hands with this new heroine and defeating demons just to save that one girl after she was brainwashed, all with thoughts of illuminating the world. The sad ending movies reminded players of all the characters, causing anger to grow from deep inside. As the credits roll, showing art directors and characters, all the characters flash before the player's eyes again and again. This sequence would inevitably make players wonder what happened to Laura. Rather than criticism for the game, there was widespread sympathy expressed for Laura. Players questioned what the staff intended for her, noting that the protagonist made her wait after her confession while getting close to other heroines, even though he and the main heroine were clearly in love. They felt her confession was a setup for a plotline that never materialized and wondered if she was still waiting for the hero. The story had its pros and cons, but the ending didn't change. Laura was a losing heroine, one with a broken heart. The girl in her previous life thought so too. Even if the story was right, she always felt sorry for Laura. She recalls the power the hero possessed, a power that awakens specifically to protect Laura. A memory flashes of a young Lucas standing protectively over a young, kneeling Laura. How Laura was feeling must have been more important than all else for her to be such an important existence. And yet, the game's ending shows Laura watching with a pained expression as Lucas stands beside the smiling main heroine. She reaches out as they walk away together. The protagonist, Lucas, seems to hear something and turns, calling for Lao, as Laura shouts for him to wait. The scene snaps back to the present, with the reincarnated Laura in bed as someone calls her name. A young boy's face is shown, his eyes wide with shock and concern. The view shifts to the corner of a bedroom, showing draped windows and the edge of a bed. The boy, Lucas Ash, stands over Laura, who is lying in bed. He has tears in his eyes, expressing how glad he is that she is okay, and she weakly recognizes him as the future hero. Laura internally reflects on how strange it is to see the future hero crying in front of her, realizing he must have been terrified thinking his childhood friend was about to be killed by a monster. She confirms his identity as Lucas, her childhood friend for the past 8 years. He tells her she should stay in bed and rest, and she thanks him. She continues her internal monologue, reflecting on his relationship with her. He is the person who is destined to become the hero of this world. As Lucas says her name, Laura thinks about the dream she just had, the one showing Lucas's future. She resigns herself to the idea that those events will happen anyway, as they are part of the game's set story. Snapping out of her thoughts, Laura sits up and reassures Lucas with a smile, telling him she is fine and doesn't hurt anywhere. He leans in very close to her face, anxiously asking if she is really telling the truth. In this close proximity, Laura notices the distinct golden emblem shining in his left eye. She recognizes this as the proof of his status as the hero, a power that has just awakened to save his childhood friend, and which will one day save the entire world. Lucas offers to get her water, which she gratefully accepts. He then rushes off, saying he will call the doctor. Just as he leaves, Laura's mother enters, crying out in relief that Laura is finally awake. The door slams shut, leaving Laura sitting alone in her bed. She stares forward, quietly processing the situation. Her room is shown, with bookshelves lining one wall and birds chirping outside the window. A basket filled with white flowers sits on a small table beside her bed. Laura deduces what must have happened. Lucas used his newly awakened hero's power to defeat the monster and then carried her back home. She has a faint memory of this event from the game, the moment the protagonist awakens his powers specifically to save Laura. She recalls her past self thinking how cool this scene was, believing at the time that it clearly established Laura as the game's main heroine. But now, she knows the tragic irony. The very hero who awakened his powers to save her is fated to move on and leave her behind. Her hand tightens, gripping the bedsheets. She doesn't understand why she was reincarnated into her favorite game, but she can't help but wonder if, armed with this knowledge, the losing heroine could actually make Lucas fall in love with her. A plan begins to form. She will study in the village until she turns 16, then find a job in the royal capital. This will be a more fulfilling life than just waiting in a small village, and she can still get information about Lucas's journey even after he leaves. Lucas returns, carrying a tray with a pitcher and a glass, apologizing for the wait. Laura smiles brightly and thanks him. She looks at him and reflects that, regardless of the future, Lucas is a very important childhood friend to her. She remembers that in reality, Lucas was often teased by other village boys as a weakling, but he was always a kind child who helped others, like an elderly woman. She also thinks to herself that he has a cute face. She knows that he will grow into a man by the time he departs on his journey. But she also knows the game's plot. With time, the childhood friend is destined to disappear from his life. As she's lost in thought, Lucas takes her hand, calling her name and promising that he will protect her. He smiles at her, his expression full of sincere determination. Laura is struck by how cute he is, but her mind also recalls a specific detail from the game's Awakening movie. At that moment, she was supposed to be standing on the surface of the water. She thinks about the rapid pace of all these fated events starting to happen. She realizes that in the original story, this is the point where she must have fallen in love with Lucas, even if her current self, with her future memories, can't fully embrace those feelings. She knows that if she follows that path, she will only end up falling in love with him all over again, just to be abandoned. She takes the glass of water from the tray. But she tells herself she is not that stupid. She makes a firm decision. She will change her job, from being the hero's destined to be forgotten NPC childhood friend to becoming the main heroine of this RPG world herself. Her expression hardens with resolve as she vows that she will not be the same losing heroine from the original story. An image of the hero and the game's true heroine walking away together flashes in her mind, strengthening her determination to change her fate. Laura stretches in her bed as morning birds chirp outside her house. It has been a couple of days since she regained the memories of her past life. Her parents had confined her to bed rest, forbidding her from going outside, which only made her feel worse as her whole body ached from inactivity. She reflects that being on bed rest has, however, helped her organize her jumbled memories. She first considers the world she's in, which is comprised of multiple countries ruled by monarchs. Her home, Amur Village, is located within the Kingdom of Austria, which is the main setting for the game Last Brave. Magic exists in this world, but not everyone has the aptitude for it. The game even had characters who could only use physical attacks. Laura sighs, figuring it's not surprising that she, a side character and the loser heroine, doesn't have any magical aptitude. Just thinking about her fated role as the loser heroine depresses her, so she decides to skip that line of thought. Deciding that staying cooped up will only make her recall bad things, she jumps out of bed and declares she is going for a walk. She pauses to look at her reflection, noting that her looks aren't bad. In fact, she's rather cute. She muses that more effort was put into her design compared to other NPCs, likely because she's the main character's childhood friend. She looks in the mirror, steels her resolve, and thinks about what she must do going forward. Slapping her own cheeks to psyche herself up, she declares that her new life is going to start now. As she heads for the door, a voice from downstairs calls out her name. Her mother and father greet her in the main room. Her mother asks if she's feeling better, and Laura complains that staying in bed made her body ache. Her father tells her to have breakfast before she goes, and she agrees, all while thinking about the first thing she absolutely must do. That first task is to put some distance between herself and the future brave, Lucas. She recalls that for the past 8 years, the two of them have been inseparable, spending all their time together even though there were other children their age. This led all the villagers to constantly comment on how they were always together, calling them good friends and noting how well they get along. Laura shudders, realizing that if she hadn't regained her memories, this would have continued, and everyone would have kept assuming she and Lucas would get married in the future. The first thing she must do is change that relationship dynamic. She finishes her meal, thanks her parents, and decides it's time for her walk. She needs to change her job from the Brave's childhood friend as soon as possible, knowing there isn't much time until Lucas leaves on his fated journey. Her current goal is to change the perceptions of the village's uncles and aunties. As she opens the door, she is stopped short by a voice calling out to her and the adults. Lucas is standing right outside her door, wishing her a good morning. Her parents greet him, with her father apologizing for troubling Luka-kun, but Lucas insists it's no trouble as he was concerned about Laura too. Laura is internally shocked, wondering if her parents called Lucas over without asking her first. She tries to awkwardly tell him that she doesn't need him to worry about her, but he just wishes her good morning and asks if she's coming on her walk. She confirms, and he replies with a simple, yeah. Lucas has a slightly blushing, determined look on his face that makes Laura internally groan. Her father scolds her not to give Lucas that look, saying he's just worried. Lucas then turns, his back to her father, and tells Laura that he has made the decision to protect her. Laura is taken aback, stammering as she tries to argue that monsters don't come into the village. Lucas, however, counters that there is no guarantee that today will be the same as always. Laura internally notes how sharp he is, just as expected of the future brave, and realizes he won't give up easily. She also knows he's right. The Demon King's revival will eventually lead to monsters appearing in the village. She reflects on the current situation. Originally, monsters in this world don't attack people and tend to avoid human contact, much like wild animals from her previous life. Furthermore, the village is protected by a magical barrier, so monsters have never made it inside. At this stage of the story, even if a monster did somehow get in, most ordinary ones could be handled by a grown man. The only exceptions would be powerful creatures like an area boss or the master of the mountain. But she knows that from this point forward, the Demon King's revival will cause monsters to turn ferocious and begin attacking human settlements. The king, searching for a solution to this crisis, will seek out the brave. In other words, he will seek out the main character of Last Brave, Lucas. Laura snaps back to the present, realizing she has to do something about Lucas tagging along. She insists she's all better, but Lucas bluntly refuses to listen. He looks at her with total seriousness and declares that he is coming with her, no matter what she says. Laura is left speechless by his intensity. She recognizes this straightforward, unwavering gaze. It is the very same intense look that Lucas has in the future, when he is the brave. She reflects that the future brave she remembers from the game is usually gentle and calm, but his moments of stubborn determination always leave a strong impression, just like the one he is giving her right now. Lucas stares at Laura, noting she seems odd today, but she anxiously denies it. He worries she might still be unwell, while she internally panics, realizing that despite his absent-minded appearance, Lucas is quite perceptive of others' feelings. Laura reasons to herself that while she is physically the same person, her mind is now that of someone over 20 years old, so it is not surprising he senses that something is off. Her father interrupts, scolding her for giving Luka-kun a hard time, and her mother agrees, adding that he is there for Laura's sake. Laura can only lament what a nuisance the childhood friend attribute is. She remembers that even in the game, her parents would say things to put their minds at ease, like how they felt safe with Lucas by her side, and would even allude to the two of them getting married. A chilling realization strikes her as she sees her parents' expressions. Their "I want them to get married" aura is not just a passing thought. It is exactly what they are aiming for. She understands that in an insular place like Amur village, a woman's role is seen as marrying and providing new laborers, while a man's role is to protect his family. While her parents wanting her to be happily married is understandable, she feels trapped by this expectation. Laura reflects that all the other villagers likely share this sentiment, recalling a game NPC, an uncle, who was excited about her and Lucas's future. She knows that if this continues, it's a one-way ticket to becoming the loser heroine, and she resolves that she must change this perception. Standing at the open door, she hesitates for a moment. A girl has arrived at the house, whom Laura's parents welcome, though her father seems to struggle to place who she is. Laura politely greets the visitors as uncle and auntie, though she is actually addressing the new girl. Laura recognizes the visitor as Petra Amur, the village chief's only daughter. Petra was a minor side character in Last Brave, so insignificant that Laura couldn't even recall her name, but in this moment, she is a godsend. Petra greets Laura by name, asking if she is well enough to be up. Laura quickly apologizes for having worried Petra. This causes Petra to become extremely flustered, stammering that she is just glad Laura is okay. Laura observes this, noting that up until now, they had only been casual acquaintances. Petra explains that her father, the village chief, had asked her to come and check on Laura. Laura immediately realizes this is the perfect opportunity to create some distance between herself and Lucas. Seizing the chance, Laura declares with a smile that she must go and thank the village chief in person, leaving Petra stunned by her sudden enthusiasm. Laura turns to her mother, asking if any sandwiches are left that she can bring as a thank you gift. Her father, standing beside a quiet Lucas and Petra, stomps his foot in annoyance and tells her to wait a minute. Ignoring him, Laura thanks Petra for waiting and prepares to leave. Her father calls out, reminding her that Luca-kun came all this way to see her, while Lucas just stares blankly, uttering Laura's name. Laura turns to Lucas and apologizes for his wasted visit, suggesting they go for a walk some other time. She then brightly grabs Petra's hand, announcing, "Let's go, Petra," and pulls her out the door. Lucas watches them walk away down the path, squeezing his fist in frustration as he quietly says Laura's name again. The scene shifts as the two girls arrive at the village chief's house. They step inside, with Laura politely apologizing for the intrusion and a still flustered Petra welcoming her in. As they walk through the house, Laura's gamer memories activate. It is her first time exploring the village since regaining her memories. She eyes a vase, recalling that examining it 3 times yields healing medicine, and then spots a closet, remembering a hidden item inside. Petra, confused, just wonders if something is wrong with the vase. The familiar game environment feels more nostalgic than ever, a sensation she finds funny, just as someone calls her name in surprise. A dark-haired girl stares at Laura, asking why she is there. Laura recognizes her as Julia, a girl a few years older than herself and Petra. Laura reflects that her own mental age is, of course, the oldest. Julia asks if Laura is well enough to be out, and Laura confirms, apologizing for causing worry. Another girl with light hair enters the room, calling for Julia and asking if Petra has returned. She then notices Laura, expressing surprise that she is there too. Laura, shocked, begins to wonder if Julia and Petra had plans to hang out together. Laura recognizes the new girl as Radmila. She quickly realizes that these 3, Petra, Julia, and Radmila, are the only 3 girls her age in the entire village, and they are all here together. A depressing thought strikes her. If she had not been attacked by the monster, would they have invited her? She concludes they definitely would not have. She had to force her way into Petra's house today, which confirms her status as an outsider. She sinks into gloom, realizing it's all because her relationship with them has been extremely shallow until now. The shock of being the odd one out is worse than she anticipated. However, she forces herself to see it positively. She is lucky to have finally noticed the reality of her situation and can now start getting along with them from this point on. She thinks about the original Laura from the game, who was pitted by players for never noticing her own isolation. Laura vows she will not follow that path. She puts on a smile and asks the others if it is okay for her to join them. Petra agrees, but Julia and Radmila look hesitant. Radmila then asks the inevitable question, "What about Lucas?" Laura's smile freezes, confirming her fear. She truly is seen as a set with Lucas. She clenches her fist in resolve, knowing she cannot let this continue. She is already 8 years old, and Lucas is fated to leave on his journey as the brave when he turns 16. With only 8 years left, she knows she must leave this village as soon as possible. Otherwise, she will be trapped, forced to remain forever as nothing more than the Brave's childhood friend. The other girls call out, asking if she is okay. Snapping back to reality, Laura apologizes and says she is coming. She mentally reiterates her two primary goals. First, to create as much distance as possible from Lucas without arousing suspicion, and second, to find a vocation and leave the village as soon as she can. She is now determined to change her future and seize her own happiness. Her new path is clear, summarized by a final thought directed at the hero. It is perfectly fine if he forgets about her. A sound effect, ding, rings out as a silhouetted person reads a book. A close-up shows an ornate pot from a video game, with a dialogue box instructing, place ingredients inside. The game's menu shows golden herb and amo root herb being selected as ingredients. A screen displays a progress bar with the word, synthesizing. The synthesis is successful, and a special healing potion is obtained, while a hooded game character, the alchemist Granny, laughs and tells the player to wait as the pot clatters. Laura recalls that in Last Brave, there is a character known as the alchemist Granny, who synthesizes potions when herbs are put in her pot, but the game reveals very little about her, not even her appearance or family. The player is given only two pieces of information about her. 1. She was once a famous alchemist employed by the royal castle, and 2. She now resides in a forest on the outskirts of a village known for high-quality herbs. The scene shifts to Laura's feet walking through a forest as she thinks, this is where the alchemist Granny lives. She stands before a quaint, vine-covered cottage in the woods. She looks up at the cottage, her expression thoughtful. She recalls walking through Amur village a few days ago, wondering what vocation she could possibly learn there. Her family is not well off enough to send her to a school. She reasoned that at most, she could only learn basic appraisal or sales skills from the local shops, which would not be enough to sustain her in the royal capital. While pondering the jobs that provide a decent living, like swordsman, magician, or healer, she suddenly had an idea: healing and alchemy. She remembered that the alchemist Granny lives just on the outskirts of the village. She knows that items called potions exist in this world. These potions can heal injuries, and depending on the herbs used in their synthesis, they can have many other effects as well. Simply put, this means the alchemist profession exists in this world. And the retired, famed alchemist Granny is now practicing alchemy as a hobby right here in this village. Laura remembers that the main character, Lucas, learns about the Granny in a mid-game event and receives the magical pot from her during a return visit to the village. The game mechanic involved the player placing herbs inside the pot, which would be transferred to the Granny. She would then compound them and deliver the completed potions back to the player, making the potions for them rather than the player making them themselves. It was a convenient item so the player didn't have to return to Amur village for potions, and it was much appreciated. She also recalls that when Lucas returned to the village to get the pot, Laura was there to greet him. After that point, she barely appeared in the game at all. Laura pushes this thought aside, now resolved to become the alchemist Granny's pupil and an alchemist herself. She beams with excitement, realizing it's the perfect vocation. Demand for potions will skyrocket with the Demon King's revival, and she needs to act now. Potions are not just for injuries. They are similar to the pharmaceuticals from her previous life, as everyone drinks them when they feel unwell. This means she will not be out of a job even after the conflict is over. Filled with this determination, she set out toward the forest, but she looks aside with a troubled expression. She ended up with Lucas tagging along, once again. She wanted to come by herself, thinking back to her conversation with the other girls a few days ago. During that chat, Julia had remarked that she and Lucas were really close, making Laura pause. Julia explained she had wondered if the other girls would be in the way, which is why Radmila was so happy they could all become friends. As part of her plan to escape her status, she had slowly become better friends with Petra and the others, but she realized with a sinking feeling that they all still see her and Lucas as a set. Lucas had also recently started playing with the other boys, who thought the golden emblem in his eye was wicked and so cool. Despite this, Laura knew their relationship was still seen as special, as the girls still hesitated to invite her places. She figured that if she said she was going to the forest, Lucas would definitely tag along. And so he had. She stands at the Granny's door and tells him she can get home by herself later, but he just smiles, saying he'll wait for her and won't get in her way, adding that it's more dangerous in the evening. She has no choice but to agree. She shyly thanks him. With her new memories, she sees him more as a cute little brother and can't see herself falling in love with him, but she still wants to avoid being alone with him as much as possible. As Lucas wishes her good luck, She turns to the door, feeling a pang of guilt, as if she's bullying a child. She takes a breath. "Excuse me," she calls out, knocking on the door. The door creaks open. A small, hooded figure with a stern expression appears, and Laura looks on nervously. Laura stammers a greeting as the figure asks, "What is it?" Laura confirms to herself that this must be the alchemist Granny. The old woman sighs and opens the door, noting her house is a bit run down. Laura immediately bows deeply and shouts, "Please make me your pupil." The Granny invites her in, telling her to have a seat anywhere. Laura enters the cottage as Lucas waves goodbye from outside. The inside of the house is filled with shelves of books, potted plants, and bunches of herbs hanging from the ceiling to dry, with a large workbench in the center. Laura marvels at the interior. The Granny, sitting at the table, asks if Laura's desire to be her pupil means she wants to be an alchemist. Laura enthusiastically replies, "Yes." With a hopeful, blushing face, Laura pleads for the Granny to let her study under her, stating that she knows she used to be a famous alchemist. Laura internally cringes, feeling embarrassed to be acting like a starstruck child when she's mentally in her 20s, though she figures there's no way she'll be found out. She quickly adds that she doesn't have any money, but she can clean and help gather herbs as payment. She is fully prepared to beg if she has to, as becoming an alchemist is the best course of action she can think of right now. Before she can continue, the Granny asks her one question. Laura looks up, surprised, as the Granny pulls back her hood. The Granny reveals her face, an elderly woman with kind eyes, and asks Laura why she wants to become an alchemist. Laura is momentarily stunned, as the Granny was always hooded in the game. Laura thinks about her honest truth. She wants to be able to live comfortably if she leaves the village, and being an alchemist is the most effective way to achieve that. She immediately dismisses that thought, realizing there's no way she can say that, as no normal 8-year-old thinks that way. Instead, she looks down and nervously explains that she would like to leave the village and see the world one day. She figures she will need a trade for when that time comes, and since she'll be working, she wants to do something that helps others. The Granny listens quietly as Laura speaks. The old alchemist regards her for a moment, saying she is an honest girl, but she then smiles, agreeing that it's true. Alchemists wouldn't need to worry about going hungry, no matter where they go. Laura looks up, surprised, as the Granny says that if Laura is okay with her, she wouldn't mind being called her master. The Granny smiles warmly, adding that she would be happy to have a cute disciple, too. Overjoyed, Laura leaps up and hugs her, shouting, "Thank you, Granny." The Granny is taken aback, questioning, "Gee, Granny?" Laura immediately pulls back, sweating and realizing she used the NPC name by mistake. She quickly corrects herself, "I'm sorry, Master." The Granny accepts this with a, "That's better," as Laura internally celebrates, thankful that high-quality herbs grow near the village and that the Granny lives nearby. Laura beams, filled with relief and joy. She never thought the Granny would actually accept a young child as her pupil. But now, she has finally made it to the starting line. The rest will depend on her own efforts. In order to become independent, she will have to work hard under her new gran. She glances out the window and sees Lucas patiently waiting outside, practicing with a wooden stick. She corrects her thought with a smile. She will have to work hard under her new master. Laura reflects that it was brought to light right after she became the master's pupil. Her master hands her a thick, cloth-bound book, telling her she can look through it for the day. As Laura takes the book, she muses that her master still won't let her touch the alchemy equipment, figuring that building a foundation of knowledge must come first. She understands this is why alchemists are professionals, as the task of memorizing the characteristics and effects of thousands of herbs is overwhelming. She continues to contemplate the sheer volume of information she must learn. But strangely, she finds the process of reading the unfamiliar books to be quite fun, even though she was never a good student in her previous life. While reading, she discovers a contradiction in the instructions, noting that one book specifies high heat, while she recalls another mentioning medium heat. She approaches her master to ask which is correct. Her master, surprised, asks to see the contradiction, and Laura moves to retrieve the other book from a stack. She quickly flips to the correct page, pointing out the different sentence to her master, who looks on with a curious expression. The master examines the two books, finds the discrepancy strange, and then asks Laura if she has somehow memorized all the text. To test her, the master asks for the characteristics of the laka leaf. Laura recites that it's an herb with red leaves from warm environments that increases body temperature. She continues, explaining that for synthesis, it's simmered briefly in water, and its potency fades as the solution's red color deepens. Her master nods, pleased, and says, "Very good," while Laura lets out a small breath of relief. The master then quizzes her on shunt fruit. Laura instantly replies that they are small, yellow fruits from cold climates, and while they have no healing properties, they are crushed and boiled to reduce the bitterness of other herbs. Laura is internally shocked, wondering what is happening to her, as the information is pouring out of her memory far beyond normal recall. She panics, realizing she has only read these books once, just as her master asks her about the Abernathy leaf. Laura searches her mind for the name Abernathy, but comes up blank. She apologetically admits she hasn't memorized that herb yet, only to see her master grinning. The master bursts into laughter, revealing that the Abernathy leaf doesn't exist. It was a trick question. She tells Laura to focus on reading whatever she can for now, as synthesizing can come later. Laura is left to wonder if Laura Ampere has a knack for memorization, is some kind of hidden character setting she never knew about. Determined to test this, she grabs a book she has not yet read. She stares at a page, reading it carefully one time through. Then she snaps the book shut. She sits at the desk and begins to write on a piece of parchment, scribbling furiously from memory. Comparing her written text to the open book, she confirms her suspicion. It is identical, every word, every sentence, and even all the punctuation. She gulps, her eyes wide as she processes the reality of this ability. She sits at the desk, surrounded by stacks of books. An alchemist must know thousands of herbs, and while she is still in disbelief, she looks up from her book, staring out the window. Realizing she possesses a skill that is incredibly favorable for her goal of becoming an alchemist. She is shown in the following days, confidently organizing vials and studying in the cottage. In what feels like the blink of an eye, 6 months pass, and Laura turns 9. She reflects on how fast children grow, though she still feels like a child compared to her previous self. She approaches her master, who is sorting a bundle of dried herbs at the table. Laura points to the bundle and informs her master that a different herb is mixed in with the others. Her master looks surprised, admitting she hadn't noticed. The master laughs, impressed that Laura could distinguish the two herbs at a glance, and remarks that Laura truly has a great memory for alchemy. Laura just giggles, saying it stood out because it looked different from the pictures in the book. Laura internally reflects that, to her knowledge, being talented at alchemy was never part of Laura's character setting in Last Brave. She concedes that since the granny also lives in Amber Village, it's possible their paths might have crossed, but she is now certain she has a talent for alchemy. Wondering if it's some hidden backstory, her thoughts are interrupted when her master tosses her a magic tome, noting it's strange her memorization only works for alchemy. Laura recalls that she already tried this. She got carried away when she first started and tried to read magic tomes, but it only made her head spin and gave her a splitting headache. Her master concludes that Laura has a mind only capable of memorizing alchemy-related information, suggesting she may have been born to be an alchemist. She smiles, telling Laura it's a wonderful thing to find one's calling in life. Laura is struck by this, wondering if Laura Ampere's true calling was always to be an alchemist. She quickly shakes off the thought, deciding that mulling it over is pointless. She just needs to believe in her chosen path and keep moving forward. Her master nods in agreement. Her master then asks Laura to go and pick a specific herb for a synthesis request from an acquaintance, and Laura cheerfully agrees. As Laura prepares to leave, her master stops her, saying it's dangerous to go alone. With a smirk, she says she has called for Laura's knight, a term that confuses Laura. Lucas appears in the doorway, smiling. Laura is completely shocked, thinking, "No way." The master thanks Lucas for coming, saying she wanted him to see Laura hard at work. Laura, mortified, shouts, "Master!" Laura internally groans, positive her master is getting a kick out of this knight business. She frets, thinking about how she had successfully distanced herself from Lucas over the last 6 months by spending time with her master and the other girls. While they walk through the forest, Laura stumbles, and Lucas quickly steadies her, telling her to watch her step. Laura mutters that this is an unexpected ambush, and that she has to do something before her master turns into a meddling granny, worried she has the wrong idea about them. Laura pulls away slightly and thanks him, noting to herself that he is genuinely chivalrous. She thinks that he is just as the future Brave should be, and seeing his special eye always reminds her of the last Brave game's outro. Suddenly, Laura spots a patch of the herbs they're looking for and runs ahead, exclaiming that there are tons. As they gather the plants, Lucas asks if she's having fun with her alchemy studies. She smiles, admitting that while it's hard work, "It has been fun." He asks what the herbs are for, and she explains their analgesic properties for things like back pain. She reflects that her enjoyment is all thanks to her unique memory. What began as a simple means to an end has grown into a genuine excitement for learning about new herbs and synthesis techniques. As she's lost in thought, Lucas quietly watches her. He suddenly observes, "You haven't called me Luca in a while," completely catching her off guard. He continues, noting that she's been getting friendlier with Petra and the other girls, and he hasn't been able to keep his promise to protect her. Laura quickly dismisses his concern, reassuring him that no one is out to get her and that she's been extra careful since the monster attack, asking if he agrees she hasn't been going anywhere dangerous. He quietly concedes. She looks at his pouting expression and internally melts, thinking he's so cute that Big Sis wants to pet his head. She wonders if she distanced herself too quickly, as she never expected him to react this way. Deciding to soften her approach, she smiles and calls him Luca, telling him she really is glad to have him looking out for her. Lucas's head snaps up, his face instantly blushing bright red. He looks down, hiding his smile as Laura watches him, thinking, "I knew it." He looks back up, his face still flushed but beaming with a wide, happy smile, and tells her that hearing her call him Luca makes him happy. Laura's eyes widen in shock at his intense reaction. She stares at his purely happy, blushing face. His words, "Hearing you call me Luca makes me happy," echo in her mind. Her memory flashes to a key scene from the last Brave game, where the adult hero Lucas sits by a campfire with the main heroine. In the game memory, the heroine asks him why he likes the name Luca, and he muses that it's perhaps because he was called that when he was little. He explains that his parents, his childhood friend, and everyone in the village called him that, and hearing the name makes him feel like he can just be himself, not the brave. The memory of the hero and heroine continues. The heroine looks at the hero thoughtfully. She then asks him shyly if it would be okay if she called him that too. The hero looks at her with a soft, blushing smile and replies, "Of course." Laura's memory fades as she returns to the present. She recognizes the expression on young Lucas's face right now. It is the exact same one the protagonist makes when he is truly happy. She clutches her arms, her own face blushing as she finds herself captivated by Lucas's smile. A young, excited Laura, accompanied by her hooded master, arrives in a bustling city street lined with tall, European-style buildings. She marvels at the scene, recognizing it as the in-game scenery from the last Brave, noting how amazing and different it is from her village. She is overjoyed, as this is the very first town the hero visits in the game. She fondly remembers this town as the place where the hero gains comrades and returns at the end of the game, recalling its light, impressive background music. As Laura runs ahead, her master calls out, telling her not to stray, and Laura cheerfully agrees. Laura recalls how this trip came to be. Almost a year after she became a disciple, her master mentioned visiting her first disciple, who lives and works in the nearby town of Sittenhelm, and capriciously asked if Laura wanted to come along. Laura was thrilled by the sudden opportunity given to her by her master. She realizes that in her desperate focus on escaping her loser heroine fate, she had forgotten that being in her favorite game's world meant she could meet her favorite characters and see her favorite cities in person. As she walks happily, she muses that perhaps being reincarnated as Laura wasn't so bad after all, until her master calls her over, saying, "Here, here." Lost in this happy thought, she follows her master and enters a large building. Standing outside, she had noted that the building didn't look like a normal residence and seemed to hold something else, making her wonder if a game-like treasure chest was inside. Upon entering, however, she was disappointed to find it was just a simple private house with no hidden items, though she supposes she shouldn't be surprised since the resident is just another disciple of her granny. Her master calls out, "Long time no see, Mercedes," and Laura internally apologizes, assuming Mercedes was just a reused NPC. An incredibly beautiful woman with long hair and elven ears appears, greeting her master, and Laura is visibly shocked. Laura is stunned by the woman's beauty, noting her extra long hair and the fact that she is an elf. She thinks the woman is seriously smoking hot. The beautiful elf, Mercedes, turns her attention to Laura and asks if this is the master's new disciple. Laura stiffly introduces herself as Laura Ampere. Mercedes smiles, welcoming her, and introduces herself as Mercedes Bloom, telling Laura not to be so stiff. Mercedes adds that she has heard Laura is a very good disciple, causing Laura to blush and feel giddy. Mercedes then says she will introduce her own disciple, Arnold, and Laura internally apologizes again for thinking Mercedes was just a reused NPC. A young, serious-looking elf boy with short black hair walks down the stairs. Laura looks up in surprise. The boy, Arnold, joins Mercedes as Laura and her master watch from the entryway. Mercedes apologizes to Laura-chan for her disciple's apparent rudeness. She introduces him as Arnold Rocco, noting that while he has an attitude, his knowledge of compounding is unquestionable. Laura politely introduces herself as Laura Ampere and says, "Nice to meet you," but Arnold just stares back in complete silence. Laura thinks about how unfriendly he seems, musing that Rocco sounds like a name for a cute animal. The name, Rocco, suddenly triggers a memory, and she realizes the name seems familiar. She remembers a genius magician from the last Brave named Elvira. She makes the connection. One of the hero's party members was named Elvira Rocco. Laura recalls Elvira vividly. She was her favorite party member, the youngest and most prideful of the group, who wielded overwhelming firepower in battle. From the first time she saw the name in the game, she had thought to herself that Rocco was a cute name. Now, standing in front of Arnold, she notes the shared traits, the same surname and the same black hair and black eyes. He is also an elf, and she recalls a game event with Elvira that revealed her parents and grandparents. She tries to remember more, recalling that Elvira never had an older brother in the game she played, but then she remembers reading something about it. It was either in an interview with the production staff, a guidebook, or maybe just a rumor on the net, but she remembers reading that plans for Elvira to have an older brother were cancelled due to capacity issues. She stares at Arnold, wondering if he is perhaps that lost character from the last Brave. Her master's voice breaks her concentration. Her master, holding a piece of paper, asks Laura if she would mind gathering some herbs from a nearby Sama herb garden, and Laura enthusiastically agrees. Laura is momentarily confused, wondering if there was a medicinal herb garden in this town. In her past life, she was the type of gamer to investigate every corner, but she doesn't recall this Sittenhelm herb garden. She glances at her master, Mercedes, and Arnold, but quickly decides it doesn't matter. This is a perfect opportunity to continue with her future plans. Mercedes smiles and tells Laura that if she is interested, she'd like her to visit the herb garden as often as she pleases. Mercedes then asks Arnold to guide Laura-chan there, but Laura quickly protests, insisting she's fine and doesn't want to be a bother. Arnold simply turns and gestures for her to follow, and Laura, feeling awkward, silently trails behind him as he heads for the door. They walk through the city streets without a word, and Laura finds the heavy silence between them to be awkward. Trying to break the tension, Laura looks at the architecture and asks if they are heading toward the town center. She thinks to herself that she's excited to see the large fountain she remembers from the game's town square. However, they arrive at a large, fenced-in garden, and Arnold turns to her. Laura's eyes widen in shock as she takes in the scene. This is clearly a garden, but her memories of the game are insistent that this location should be the town's central square, built around a large fountain. She is certain she isn't mistaken, as she visited the square repeatedly for in-game events, and it was even the setting for a party member's childhood flashback. There is no way she could have misremembered such an impactful and frequently visited location. A disquieting thought begins to surface as she processes this discrepancy. She realizes that while her village was exactly as she remembered from the game, everything since her arrival in this town has been different. The very existence of Mercedes and Arnold is a new development. And now, this herb garden stands where the Fountain Plaza is supposed to be. She understands that because she is following a different path from the original The Last Brave story, her actions are creating divergences that could have unexpected effects on this world. Events are already changing from the game's script, and she has no way of knowing whose life has been altered as a result. She looks on with a worried expression, concluding that it might be safer to stop relying so heavily on her game knowledge from this point forward. As she stands frozen in thought, Arnold looks back at her. He breaks the silence, asking what she is doing. Startled, Laura quickly snaps to attention and apologizes. She watches him walk ahead, her mind returning to the mystery of who he is and if he's truly connected to the game character Elvira. If he is the lost older brother character, she wonders why he exists in this world that, up until this town, had been identical to the game. Arnold suddenly speaks, surprising her by stating he is surprised she became Master Berta's disciple. He explains that Berta is famous for rejecting apprentices and had only accepted 3 people, including Mercedes, until now. Laura is stunned by this, realizing she is only the 4th disciple her master has ever taken. Arnold elaborates that he personally traveled to Berta's remote village to ask her to teach him, but she flatly refused. He admits this is the reason he was so rude to her earlier. Hearing his jealous explanation, Laura internally thinks it's actually rather cute. She wonders why her master would accept her but turn down Arnold. He then crouches by a plant and quizzes her, asking if she knows this particular herb. Laura kneels beside him, immediately identifying it as a recently discovered herb known to boost the recovery effects of medicines. Arnold, still testing her, gestures to another plant. She just as quickly identifies it as an herb used in cooking that aids the digestive system, noting it has no healing properties for wounds on its own. She confidently adds that the books she read warned about similar-looking herbs that are poisonous, so careful checking is required during harvesting. At this, Arnold abruptly stands up and turns away, his expression frustrated. Laura is confused, wondering if she said something to upset him. She worries that she was too immature in showing off her knowledge and that she should have pretended not to know, fretting that she's ruined her chance to learn from him. She watches his back, his posture tense. She recalls that Elvira, the genius magician from the game, also had an arrogant and uncontrollable personality in the story's early stages due to her high pride. Laura senses a similar wounded pride coming from Arnold now. He suddenly snaps at her, yelling, "Why?" and asking if she forgot why they were there, ordering her to stop standing around and start picking the herbs. Startled, Laura apologizes and quickly gets to work, deciding to avoid angering him further. She thinks to herself that he's not a bad kid, he's just helping her out. She still wants to solve the mystery of his connection to Elvira, though. But for now, she recognizes that Arnold is a difficult person to handle. She decides it might be better to just ask Mercedes about him later. Focusing on her task, she examines an herb, checking it against the list. She glances over at him, still wondering who he really is. Laura looks at the alchemy equipment laid out in Mercedes's lab, understanding her master set this up intending for her to make a potion today. She realizes her master prepared everything except the relevant alchemy book, clearly testing Laura's memorization ability. Trusting her memory, Laura begins the potion-making process. She carefully selects the correct leaves from a plant. She crushes herbs in a mortar and measures liquids into a beaker, noting that while the potion seems straightforward initially, she filters the mixture, aware that appearances can be deceiving in alchemy. Mercedes and Arnold watch Laura closely, knowing every single step is critical and can change the final result. Laura concentrates, stirring the concoction, understanding that high-quality potions demand advanced techniques and zero mistakes. She holds up the finished vial, carefully inspecting the final product. With a hint of nervousness, Laura presents the completed potion to her master. To Laura and Arnold's shock, the master immediately drinks the entire potion. The master considers the taste and effect for a moment, examining the vial. She smiles warmly, congratulating Laura on successfully making her first potion, clearly pleased with her progress, while Arnold stares in disbelief at Laura's beginner success. The master then casually tells Laura she can use any herbs she wants to practice mixing potions and leaves the room, saying she'll be nearby if needed. Laura reflects on her master's laid-back teaching style, thinking it was the right choice for her, even if unconventional. Arnold approaches and asks skeptically if that was truly Laura's first time making a potion, which she confirms. He reacts with blunt disbelief, exclaiming, "What the hell?" Laura feels awkward, having simply answered his question honestly. Unexpectedly, Arnold cracks a competitive smile, declaring that even if she's ahead now, he will surpass her soon. Laura is taken aback by his sudden shift in demeanor and the challenging look on his face. He proclaims his ambition is to become a royal compounder, an alchemist serving the crown in the capital, a title unfamiliar to Laura. Laura offers a simple, encouraging reply, saying she thinks it would be nice if he achieves his goal. Arnold insists he will achieve it, annoyed by her lukewarm response, solidifying in Laura's mind that this is his firm goal. Laura considers his goal a respected profession using skill to help others, and suspects his motivations might be similar to her own desire for independence and purpose. Just then, Mercedes returns and asks Laura directly if she lacks interest in becoming a royal compounder herself. Mercedes shows Laura a document, explaining the annual apprentice tests held in the capital. The exam is tough, but anyone over 14 can take it, regardless of their background. Passing makes one an apprentice royal compounder, eligible for the full promotion exam after 2 more years. Laura stares at the document, completely unaware that such a formal system for alchemists existed. Mercedes points out that Arnold plans to take the exam in 3 years, and Laura realizes she could take it in 5 years, when she turns 14. Mercedes invites Laura to come with them if she's interested, prompting Laura to worry about how she'd ever convince her parents. An image of the game's fountain square flashes through Laura's mind. Not applicable. Mercedes praises Laura's remarkable talent, suggesting she could save many people, but this prospect makes Laura feel afraid, questioning the path she's chosen. Mercedes remarks that Arnold's competitive declaration towards Laura was unusual, the first time she's seen him act that way. As his master, Mercedes expresses her wish for Arnold and Laura to push each other to work hard. Laura looks at the apprentice eligibility rules, ages 14 to 20, and sees no immediate reason to turn down Mercedes's implied offer. Despite this, a deep sense of fear begins to grow within her. She realizes it's not just fear, but genuine terror. She's become too accustomed to relying on her game knowledge, thinking she knew exactly how the future would unfold. But with the world diverging from the game, she now has no clue what might happen next. Time skips to the third day of their stay in Sittenhelm, following Laura's successful potion test. That morning, her master unexpectedly announces they'll return to the village the next day, cutting their planned week-long visit short. Laura is shocked, having been kept awake the previous night by confusing dreams about being a royal compounder. As they gather, Laura's only thought is how to ask Arnold if he has a sister before they leave. She frets, lacking a plan and struggling to find the right moment, afraid they'll depart before she gets her answer. Just as she's panicking, her master calls her name. Mercedes cheerfully suggests that she, Arnold, and Laura visit the herb garden together one last time. Laura beams, overcome with relief and excitement at the perfectly timed opportunity. Not applicable. She mentally cheers for Master Mercedes, seeing her as a true blessing for creating this chance. While walking towards the garden, Laura decides she can't miss this opportunity and directly asks Arnold if he happens to have any siblings. To make the question seem less abrupt, she quickly adds that she might be getting a sibling soon and was just curious about what having one is like. Arnold curtly dismisses Laura's question about siblings, stating he has no desire or requirement to answer, leaving Laura flustered by his unexpectedly harsh reaction. Laura shrinks back, feeling utterly shut down and thinking she's done for. Mercedes gently steps in, placing a hand on Arnold's shoulder and revealing that she has a cute little sister. Mercedes explains she doesn't get to talk about her sister much because Arnold is antisocial, adding she's happy Laura asked. Arnold looks shocked that Mercedes is bringing this up. Laura watches, bewildered, as Mercedes beams and Arnold looks away, slightly flustered. Not applicable. Arnold protests, asking why Mercedes is involving him, but Laura notes that he wasn't actually talking to Mercedes. Observing their dynamic, Laura finds their relationship surprisingly heartwarming. Mercedes encourages Arnold to join the conversation, reminding him that he also has a younger sister who will soon turn 5 years old. Laura's heart pounds at the mention of a 5-year-old sister. She only remembers Elvira as the youngest party member. In the game, Elvira looked about 12 years old. Laura quickly calculates. Lucas starts his journey at 16, roughly 8 years from now. If Arnold's sister is currently 5, she would be 13 in 8 years' time, matching Elvira's approximate age. She concludes it must be her. Laura cautiously asks Arnold for his sister's name. He replies flatly, Elvira. Laura clenches her fist, confirming that his sister really is Elvira Rocco from the game. She deduces that Arnold must be the older brother character mentioned in developer interviews, scrapped due to capacity issues but apparently existing in this version of the world, despite being completely absent from the game itself. She wonders if he exists solely as part of Elvira's character settings, even if he doesn't appear in the main game narrative. Eagerly, she asks Arnold if he's on good terms with his cute sister, Elvira. Arnold just gives a non-committal, ish. Mercedes playfully interjects, teasing Arnold by saying he's actually very proud of his little sister and her special talent for magic. Laura processes this, confirming Elvira's magical talent, while Mercedes continues to affectionately tease a flustered Arnold. The mystery is solved, but Laura realizes the details she now has contradict the story she knew, leaving her with more questions. Arnold sighs, admitting to Mercedes that talking about his sister was fun, though he complains about her revealing his secret. Mercedes just smiles. Laura takes the opportunity to ask Mercedes if the medicinal herb garden has been around for a long time. Mercedes confirms it existed even before she was born. This further solidifies Laura's unease. The fountain square from the game is nowhere to be found in this world. Arnold suddenly comments that he hopes Laura's soon-to-be-born sibling is healthy, referencing the lie she told earlier. Laura is shocked speechless by his unexpected remark. She doesn't understand his expression or why he'd say that, wondering if it's related to her lie, finding his comments surprisingly relatable for someone discussing younger siblings. Shaking off her confusion, she smiles warmly and thanks Arnold, thinking he must be a good brother. Internally, she apologizes for lying to him. Still, she is glad to know that in this world, Elvira has a kind older brother looking out for her. She hopes things will go well for both Arnold and Elvira from now on. She reflects on the growing gap between what she knows about this world and what she doesn't, realizing she can't change what's already different. Resolute, she accepts that she is who she is now and must simply live the life of Laura as she chooses, forging her own path. She walks alongside Arnold and Mercedes through the sunlit herb garden, ready to face the unknown future. Laura walks alone on a sunlit path through the forest surrounding her village. She looks back toward her home, thinking gratefully of her father and mother for their support. Gazing at the village houses under the moonlight, she resolves to do her best and make them proud of her decision. She recalls the pivotal conversation where her parents readily agreed to support her dream of becoming a royal compounder apprentice, expressing their pride and relief, prompting her to promise she'd discuss the details with her master the next day. Laura remembers asking them to keep her plans quiet for now, acutely aware of the local tradition where parents typically dictate their children's careers and marriages. Their blessing felt like the final push she needed, solidifying her determination to become a master alchemist, starting with passing the Royal Compounder Apprenticeship test. With renewed resolve, she walks toward her master's cottage in the woods, ready to follow Master Mercedes's suggestions for her future. Suddenly, Lucas rushes up behind her, calling her name urgently. He confronts her directly, asking if the rumors are true. Is she really leaving the village, causing Laura to wonder if her master had summoned him yet again. Lucas looks visibly upset, asking if she had been hiding her plans from him, and Laura internally groans, realizing her mother must have broken her promise and told someone. She flashes back to her mother excitedly telling Lucas's mother that Laura planned to leave at age 14, urging them to let the children remain close until then, while Laura tried desperately to explain she simply hadn't decided when to announce it. Trying to downplay the situation, Laura tells Lucas her mother is just jumping the gun and that she still needs to pass a difficult test first, but he doesn't believe her, accusing her of lying. Laura insists it isn't a lie, explaining she only recently made the final decision herself. She reflects internally that she had intended to tell him eventually, but discussing her future with him feels complicated now. She acknowledges that he is the main reason she might have considered staying, yet she knows his destiny involves leaving with another girl, which reinforces her own plan to go to the royal capital. Lucas's eyes light up and he excitedly declares that he will go to the capital too, wanting to join the knights where his unique power is sure to be helpful, stunning Laura. Her eyes fixate on the golden emblem in his eye, and a wave of panic washes over her as she thinks, this is bad. Because her game knowledge tells her that soon, demons will begin attacking Amber Village, and Luca, as the awakened hero, will be needed there to protect everyone. She looks down, deeply troubled by this unforeseen complication. A heavy weight settles on her as she recognizes her own selfishness in pursuing her dream. She is determined to leave and become an alchemist, but she knows that if Luca leaves the village or somehow loses his powers prematurely, the fate of this entire world could be thrown into chaos. Steeling herself, she looks at him seriously and states firmly that he has to stay here, in this village. Lucas reacts with hurt and confusion, shouting that if she's going to the capital, then he's going too. Laura turns her face away, unable to look at him. Whipping back around, she forcefully yells, I don't want you to. Lucas flinches, visibly wounded by her harsh rejection, his face falling. He softly speaks her name, his voice filled with hurt. Tears gather in his eyes as he asks her, his voice trembling, do you hate me now? He reminds her that she has been noticeably avoiding him ever since, that day, his powers awakened, implying her fear of him. Grabbing her hand, he pleads desperately, asking if she hates him for having strange eyes, if she's truly scared of his power. His desperate questions make Laura realize that the thought of hating or fearing him never once crossed her mind. After all, it was Luca's power that had saved her life. A sudden understanding dawns on her. Perhaps Luca himself was afraid of the immense power he now possessed, the power of the hero destined to save the world. Abruptly letting go of her hand, Lucas turns and runs away down the forest path. Laura cries out his name, shouting that he's wrong, that she never meant to hurt him, and desperately pleads for him to wait. As she runs after him, calling his name, her foot catches on a root. She screams as she tumbles forward onto the dirt path. Hearing her cry, Lucas immediately stops and whirls around, calling her name in alarm. He sprints back to where she fell, anxiously asking if she's okay. He reaches down and takes her hand, helping her up. Laura looks up into his worried face as their hands connect. As he pulls her to her feet, she stares at him, a profound realization hitting her. She understands now. She was the one who was truly afraid of the golden emblem in his eye. Terrified by the imposing shadow of the future hero, she had inadvertently pushed away the real Luca standing right before her, even though his power had been used to save her. Meeting his gaze, she apologizes softly but sincerely, confessing, "Luca, I'm sorry. I was scared of your eyes." She thinks to herself that she didn't need to push him away like that, but admitting the tangled knot of her feelings for him, shaped by game knowledge and her own desires, feels too difficult. They sit together on the path for a moment in silence. Luca gently touches his own cheek, looking contemplative. He covers his golden eye with his hand, feeling a gentle warmth emanating from it. Laura closes her eyes briefly, sensing the same warmth. She recognizes it as Luca's unique power, the very power he had used to protect her from the monster. Laura reflects on her harsh words to Lucas, feeling regretful. She knows she hurt her precious childhood friend because she was stupid, stubborn, and scared about the future she foresaw. Sitting beside him, she clarifies her fear. It's not him she's afraid of, but the idea of him coming with her, because his kind power is meant for protecting everyone, and others will need him. She looks at the golden crest in his eye, recognizing it as proof he is the brave, but now understanding it's not necessarily proof she'll be the losing heroine as she'd feared. With a gentle smile, she explains that her feelings aren't fear, but simply that she's not romantically in love with Luca. Lucas insists he will come to the capital anyway, demanding to know why she objects, but Laura firmly tells him he can't. Taking his hands, she looks him in the eye and makes him promise he will never tell anyone what she is about to reveal. Luca stares back, wide-eyed, but nods his agreement. Laura steels herself, knowing she can't lie to him anymore, even if revealing future knowledge feels wrong. She tells him the power of demons will soon begin to rise. She explains that his power is needed here, by the village, to protect everyone they love. She finishes speaking and watches Luca's face intently, wondering if he will possibly believe such a fantastical prediction. His expression is somber, and Laura trusts he knows she wouldn't lie about this, guessing his sadness might stem from the loneliness of knowing she plans to leave. Her gaze softens as she looks at him. Trying to soften the blow, she quickly adds that she hasn't definitively decided about the capital yet, and even if she goes, she will eventually return, plus he could always come and visit her. Luca looks up, his expression immediately brightening with hope, not applicable. He breaks into a huge smile, grabbing her hands and enthusiastically promising he will definitely come visit. They face each other, hands clasped, relieved, not applicable. Laura looks at Luca's relieved expression. Both children burst into wide, happy smiles, the earlier tension completely dissolving between them, not applicable. Laura reflects that while her game memories caused many concerns about their relationship, being able to laugh with him like this feels undeniably good and right. Her path forward finally feels clear. She accepts her role as the Brave's childhood friend and won't run from it, while simultaneously pursuing her ambition to become a royal compounder. She resolves to embrace being the Brave's childhood friend. Meanwhile, back at Mercedes's house, Mercedes comments to Arnold that it looks like Laura has also decided to aim for becoming a royal compounder. Arnold feigns indifference as usual, asking why it should concern him, prompting Mercedes to sigh and wish he could be more honest. Mercedes watches Arnold study, a knowing smile on her face as she anticipates the potentially fun rivalry between him and Laura. Arnold looks up from his book, gazing thoughtfully out the window, not applicable. A final, serene image shows a memory of a younger Laura and Luca happily playing together, collecting leaves in the sunlit forest. Laura looks out at the royal city of Savila, the capital. She reflects that it has been 3 years since she first met Arnold in Sittenhelm. Now 12 years old, she marvels at how big the capital is, just as she expected. Accompanied by her master, Berta, Laura looks out the window, thinking about Arnold's upcoming apprentice exam tomorrow. She is confident he will pass without issue. Berta reminds Laura that in 2 years, she too will take the exam, but Laura notes that for today, she is only here to look around. It has been a long time since Laura last saw Arnold, but Berta has kept her updated by reading her letters from him and Mercedes. Over the past 3 years, Laura dedicated herself to her alchemy studies under Berta, mastering the basics to the point where she could perform simple tasks blindfolded, though Berta cautioned her against actually doing so. On Berta's behalf, Laura also made recovery potions for the people of their village, Emi. Having finally arrived in the capital city, Laura feels a sense of anticipation. Lucas is also present, having accompanied them on the trip. Laura gets help disembarking from a carriage, and Lucas assists her, telling her to be careful. She thanks him, noting internally how much he has grown over the past 3 years. Lucas expresses his happiness at being in the capital, and Laura thinks about how tall he is now, recalling that he was about 170 centimeters at the start of the game and wondering how much more he'll grow. Berta comments on her surprise that Lucas came along, but mentions his parents thought it was a good idea, so she couldn't refuse. Laura thanks her for bringing him. Laura reflects that she and Luca are back to being friends, and she's no longer worried about their relationship. Luca is an important childhood friend, and she just needs to avoid falling in love with him, which was her main fear. As they stand before a large building, Laura recognizes it as an inn from the game where lodging costs 240 Madokas, just as someone excitedly calls her name. Mercedes appears, greeting them warmly, and Laura happily greets her back, noting it's been a while. Mercedes approaches, looking as beautiful as ever, and mentions that she and Arnold have just arrived as well. Arnold stands beside Mercedes, looking taller and more mature than 3 years ago, prompting Laura to think, wow. Arnold immediately questions her, wow, and Laura quickly realizes that despite the change in atmosphere and his deeper voice, his prickly personality remains the same. Arnold asks if Laura has been slacking off, warning her not to fail the exam and declaring he'll become a royal alchemist before her. Laura assures him she hasn't been slacking. Laura is taken aback by his immense confidence, given that he hasn't even taken the exam yet. She tells Mercedes and Luca that while she initially thought alchemy would be easy due to her memory skill, she discovered there are endless new things to learn and has thus studied hard for the past 3 years. Mercedes spots Luca and gushes over how cute he is, correctly identifying him as Laura's childhood friend she's heard so much about. Luca politely introduces himself as Lucas Camel. Laura watches Mercedes fawn over Luca's cute smile, thinking her old self might have fallen for it too, while noting how novel it is to see Luca blushing. Luca extends his hand to Arnold, introducing himself formally. Arnold shakes Luca's hand, offering a polite greeting in return. Arnold then immediately follows up with a sarcastic-sounding compliment about Luca acting nice during introductions, surprising both Laura and Luca with his bluntness. Mercedes sighs, exasperated, telling Laura that Arnold has only gotten weirder over the past 3 years. Laura recalls Arnold directed similar malicious jokes at her when they first met, likely due to being wary of her. Arnold turns his sharp questioning on Laura, demanding to know why she brought Luca, calling him an outsider with nothing to do with the exam. Laura, flustered, tries to apologize to Luca, explaining Arnold is just shy and gets rude when embarrassed. Luca stares intently at Arnold, not applicable. Luca calmly states that he is protecting Laura and followed her for that reason. Arnold and Luca face off, staring intensely at each other as Laura stands nervously between them. Not applicable. Arnold points directly at Luca's left eye, asking bluntly what's wrong with it. Laura feels the heavy, tense air, realizing these two strong-willed individuals are not going to get along. Laura flashes back to Luca's tearful question after his power awakened, asking if his power scared her. Arnold reaches toward Luca's eye. Laura quickly steps between them, grabbing Arnold's arm and firmly telling him not to speak ill of her childhood friend, stating Luca accompanied her because he was worried about her safety. Mercedes calls Arnold's name sharply, and he reluctantly backs down, walking away as Laura wonders what just happened. The next day marks the first day of the exams, and Laura watches Arnold head towards the venue. She looks on with a slightly worried expression. Arnold walks down the city street alone. Laura follows him at a distance, maintaining the awkward silence between them. She reflects that Mercedes didn't accompany them, leaving her alone with Arnold again, and she still doesn't understand his bad mood from the previous day, though she hopes he feels better now. They arrive at the large, gated entrance to the exam venue, where many other aspiring alchemists are gathered. Laura starts to wish Arnold good luck, but he cuts her off curtly, saying he doesn't need it before walking away. Laura is left bewildered, wondering how long the exam will take, where she should wait, and if Arnold will be angry if he finishes and she isn't there. A kind guard notices her confusion and informs her there's a waiting room for relatives, asking if she came with a friend. A handsome man in a knight's uniform approaches, offering to show her the way. Laura is momentarily flustered, thinking he looks like a prince, before gratefully accepting his offer. Laura recognizes the national emblem on his armor, identifying him as a member of the royal city's Knights of Chevalier. She recalls that the commander of this order becomes a party member in The Last Brave. He leads her into the royal castle, which looks exactly like it did in the game. Laura is thrilled, hoping she might glimpse the cheerful knight chief from the game, even though she knows this man isn't him. They arrive at the waiting room, and Laura confirms with the knight that he is indeed part of the Knights of Chevalier, knowing the knight chief will join Luca's party in about 5 years. Inside the waiting room, Laura sees anxious parents waiting for their children taking the exam. The knight comments sympathetically that it's hard for the parents too. As the knight prepares to leave, Laura thanks him for his help, mentioning she plans to take the exam herself in a few years. He smiles, saying he might be in her care someday if she becomes an alchemist, and thanks her in advance. A credit panel thanks the scanlator, 56 Leon. Luca beams, welcoming Laura back as she arrives at the inn. Laura finds Luca waiting for her, and he congratulates her on finishing the first day of exams, asking why she's alone. She explains Arnold went straight to his room, ignoring her thank you. Laura apologizes for neglecting Luca, but he insists he just wanted to come and that it was fun because Ms. Mercedes showed him around the city. Luca excitedly mentions finding a shop he thinks Laura would like and suggests they go together when they have time. Laura happily agrees. Laura feels a sense of relief seeing Luca's cheerful, dog-like eagerness after spending the day with the prickly Arnold. Luca remarks that Ms. Mercedes is an elf and looks beautiful, guessing she must be quite old. Laura confirms Mercedes told her she's 37. Luca casually comments that elves don't seem to live that long these days, shocking Laura. Laura panics, thinking Luca asked Mercedes her age directly, but he clarifies he simply remarked that elves live a long time, and she volunteered the information. Laura feels relieved Luca isn't being delinquent. Laura ponders this information, recalling elves are said to live over 100 years but noting Arnold's development seems similar to humans. She wonders if their aging slows down after reaching physical maturity. Luca asks about that Arnold being an elf too, calling elves a strange race, and Laura confirms it. Laura mentions Arnold is 14 now, 2 years older than them. Laura remembers Arnold looking her straight in the eye during their confrontation the day before, making her freeze. She recalls the intensity of that moment. Laura quickly reassures Luca that Arnold's question about his eye wasn't meant to be scary, just a straightforward query about the unusual crest. Luca seems unconvinced, but Laura insists she's just explaining Arnold's likely intent. Laura silently observes Luca, noting he still hasn't fully accepted his unique power. She understands his hesitation. It's not magic, but a sudden, unknown power bestowed upon him that no one truly understands. Luca acknowledges her point with a quiet, "I know." Laura reflects that the golden crest signifies Luca's gentle power meant to protect people, a fact she knows from the game, The Last Brave, where Luca mastered his powers before leaving the village. She realizes she didn't pay attention to how he accepted his powers in the game, but speculates he must have been encouraged by someone close. Slowly coming to terms with it, she resolves to be that support for him now, even if she isn't his fated love interest. As his childhood friend, she smiles warmly at him and says, "Thank you." The next day, the second day of the apprentice exams, Laura reaffirms her decision to do everything she can to help Luca accept his power. While waiting in the designated room, Laura enjoys some delicious food. She reflects that the atmosphere is all about learning, and though she brought a book today after failing to concentrate yesterday, she's glad she can still have a good time while waiting. Seeing other parents anxiously waiting, Laura feels a bit sorry for them but reminds herself to focus on her reading. Sometime later, noise from outside indicates the exam is over. Laura stretches, wondering how many hours have passed. Arnold appears at the waiting room door, and Laura thanks him for his time. He bluntly states, "I passed." Laura is momentarily stunned by his nonchalant delivery. She asks if they tell you whether you pass or fail immediately, and Arnold confirms that starting tomorrow, he'll be an apprentice blender, compounder. He adds with extreme arrogance that he was very good at what he did, shocking the other waiting families. Laura recalls his earlier declaration about becoming a royal alchemist before her, and he reiterates that he'll be one step ahead of her now. He looks at her expectantly, and she realizes she needs to study hard for the next 2 years without being smug about her own memory cheat, preparing for her own exam. She observes his confident expression, noting how sure of himself he was. Suddenly, Arnold grabs her hand and starts pulling her away, telling her to come with him, much to her surprise. He leads her quickly through the corridors of the royal castle. Laura feels conspicuous, realizing 2 children walking alone in the castle must stand out. Despite her awkwardness, she takes a moment to appreciate walking through halls she recognizes from the game. They arrive at a beautiful courtyard garden with a fountain, where a man stands alone. Arnold calls out, "Mr. Casper." The man turns around. He's young, with shaggy hair and round glasses, and he greets Arnold cheerfully. Casper immediately notices Laura, teasingly asking Arnold if the pretty girl is his girlfriend. Laura is bewildered by the man, who looks like an old nerdy researcher, despite his youthful voice. She wonders if Arnold is wearing a royal alchemist outfit and feels amazed Arnold knows such a person. Arnold corrects Casper, stating Laura will take the exam in 2 years, but Casper's assumption flusters Laura so much she can't correct him herself. Casper excitedly repeats, "Genius's girlfriend," then connects Laura to rumors he's heard about Arnold's talented junior disciple, calling her genius. Just then, another voice interrupts, asking who Casper is referring to. A familiar man's voice addresses Arnold, looking forward to working with the hero, likely mistaking Arnold for Luca or referring to a different context. Laura recognizes the newcomer instantly. It's Vake, the oldest member of the hero's party from the last Brave, identifiable by the distinctive scar over his right eye. She stares at the large scar on Vake's face. Then she notices something is wrong. The Vake standing before her doesn't have the scar. Casper explains to Vake that Arnold is the genius who passed the exam instantly due to incomparable results, and now he's brought a girl who might be a genius too. Vake introduces himself to Laura as Vake Bakel, preemptively asking her future alchemist self to take good care of him with recovery potions. He cheerfully adds that, despite his appearance, he's the Knight Commander of the Chevalier Order. Laura observes him closely. He looks almost the same as in the game, just a bit younger, but the defining scar is missing. She recalls the game's explanation for the scar, an injury from a battle with a demon, described as an injury of honor, and knows Vake had no reason to hide it. She used to think the scar was just a character design element, but now the thought of Vake potentially receiving that injury in the coming years makes her heart ache. The possibility causes her visible distress. Vake notices her pained expression and asks if something is wrong, playfully patting her head. Laura is momentarily stunned, then overjoyed, hardly believing she's actually talking to Vake. She internally gushes about him being friendly, strong, dependable, and an absolute must-have in her game party. Before she can fully express her excitement, Casper excitedly introduces himself as Casper Klassen, the Royal Alchemist Master of the King. Pushing Vake aside, Laura politely greets him. A subordinate calls for Commander Vake, interrupting the introductions. Vake shakes Laura's hand goodbye, saying he'll see her later, leaving Laura thrilled to have met one of her favorite characters. Casper calls Arnold over to discuss his upcoming schedule, leaving Laura momentarily alone, feeling more excited than ever about being reincarnated in this world. Casper bids Laura farewell, saying he looks forward to working with her in 2 years when she takes her exam. Laura feels the pressure mounting. Thanks to Arnold, the Royal Alchemist Master already knows her name and expects great things. She looks at Arnold, realizing she absolutely cannot fail the exam now. Casper calls out to Ampere as he leaves with Arnold. Arnold stops and turns back to Laura, telling her with certainty that she will definitely pass the exam in 2 years. He adds darkly that if she does fail, he will laugh at her for the rest of her life. Laura retorts that she won't fail. Arnold walks away, leaving Laura sighing, unsure what to expect from their future interactions. She watches him go, and he glances back momentarily, simply stating, "I understand." He turns again and says quietly, "I'll be waiting." He pauses, looking determined. Then he strides away purposefully. Laura watches him leave, slightly bewildered by his parting words. She didn't expect him to say something like that. Arnold walks down a castle corridor, ignoring Casper who tries to talk to him. Laura walks away in the opposite direction, a thoughtful smile on her face. A concluding narrative box states that after this day, Laura and Arnold did not see each other again for 2 years. Laura walks into a sunlit forest clearing. A crowd bustles through the streets of a European-style city. Feet hurry across a stone path. Luca excitedly calls for Laura to follow him, while she asks him to wait. Today is Laura's last day in the royal capital. She will return to Emi village in the afternoon, so she and Luca are sightseeing in the morning, getting dressed up for the occasion. Laura wears flowers in her hair, finding the fresh-feeling novel since her previous life. Luca remarks it would have been nice if Arnold had come with them, but Laura notes they didn't get to talk much anyway. Laura confirms this, recalling that Arnold did not return to the inn after the second day of his exams. She remembers Mercedes explaining that Arnold had been summoned to the royal castle and a room was already prepared for him there, shocking Laura and Luca. Mercedes had further elaborated that those who pass the exam live in the castle immediately, and she was busy moving Arnold's luggage. Laura had questioned Arnold leaving without telling his parents, recalling from game lore that Arnold's and Elvira's parents lived deep in an elven village. An image shows the distant elven village across water. Mercedes confirmed that coexisting and marriage between elves and humans is difficult due to differing lifespans. Laura and Luca walk through the city streets, but Laura still wonders why Arnold didn't say a final goodbye before moving into the castle. They arrive at the shop Luca mentioned, and Laura exclaims how cute it is. Luca points out the shop, asking Laura if she loves it. She recognizes it as the shop that seems like something I would like, but is confused because she remembers this location being a restaurant in the original Last Brave game, deciding not to dwell on the change. She rationalizes that in the game only shops relevant to the protagonist, weapons, armor, tools, were detailed, so changes to other shops are natural variations in this reality. Unlike the missing fountain, this doesn't bother her. Laura enters the shop. She exclaims, "Wow," at the interior. The shop is filled with cute picture frames, pottery, and various trinkets. Laura finds the items incredibly cute. She admires hair accessories in different colors, unlike anything available in the village, deciding to buy one as a souvenir. Holding her purchase, she feels slightly embarrassed by her girlish excitement, remembering she's mentally over 20, but guesses she's still a girl at heart. Luca browses nearby, looking at ornate boxes. He calls out to Laura, suggesting they get juice after leaving the store and mentioning a good place he saw yesterday. Laura asks if he can go ahead, explaining she wants to buy souvenirs for her mom. Luca agrees and heads out, waiting outside the shop. Laura wonders if he was embarrassed buying a gift for his mom in front of her. Waiting outside, Laura observes the passers-by, noticing many people carrying weapons, which is unusual compared to Emi village but perhaps normal for the capital, though the number seems excessive. She wonders if more demons are on the way, but hasn't heard anything specific yet. She knows there are still 4 years until Luca is supposed to leave the village to start his journey as the hero, but feels the fated time of rising demonic power is definitely getting closer. She reassures herself that Luca, as the hero, will be fine. She knows that much. However, seeing Luca happy and carefree now, she admits she's not sure if she's ready for those difficult times to begin. Luca returns, apologizing if he kept her waiting too long. She assures him he didn't, and they head off towards the juice shop he mentioned. Luca takes Laura's hand as they walk. They sit on a bench outside, and Laura serves Luca the juice she bought. Laura sips her juice, finding it tasty, while Luca calls her name. He holds out a delicate bracelet with a single charm in his palm. Laura looks at it, surprised. Luca explains he bought it at the shop and shows her he bought a matching one for himself. Laura exclaims that it's beautiful and thanks him, but asks why he bought it. Luca recounts how Ms. Mercedes showed him around and told him about the royal alchemists. He explains that while he knew becoming a royal alchemist was a great profession and that Laura was working hard. As he listened to Mercedes, he felt like Laura had suddenly gone very far away from him. Laura listens intently, watching his expression. He voices his fear that when Laura turns 14 and moves to the capital, she will live there. And when that happens, he felt like he would eventually be forgotten. Laura immediately denies this, but Luca laughs it off, calling himself a pessimist. He admits it's just his own insecurity and that he knows Laura isn't that kind of girl. Laura looks away, blushing slightly, thinking it's impossible for her not to remember him, also thinking of the original Laura from The Last Brave. She wonders if the original Laura felt the same insecurities Luca is expressing now. She reflects on their origins in the small, isolated village of Emi, where they knew nothing else. In the original story, Laura remained in the village while Luca went out into the world. He learned about the bigger world, met various people, and grew strong on his journey. Laura realizes she identified with the original Laura's fear, the fear that Luca would eventually forget about her as he experienced the wider world and she remained behind, feeling small. She looks at Luca with newfound understanding. She realizes she wants to support Luca. Looking at the bracelet in her hand, she understands the best thing she can do for Luca right now is accept his gift, hoping it serves as a reminder of her for him from time to time. Luca watches her expression anxiously. Laura looks from the bracelet to Luca. She smiles brightly, accepting the bracelet and thanking him, declaring she'll use it as a good luck charm. Luca stares at her, slightly taken aback by her radiant smile. Laura thinks that a bracelet blessed by the brave will surely help her in the future. With their sightseeing concluded, Laura thinks it's time to go home to the village of Emi. 2 years pass, showing the grand building where the royal compounder exams are held. Inside, Apprentice alchemists nervously await results. Casper Klassen appears, holding a document and cheerfully congratulating Laura. He announces that she has passed with one of the highest scores. Laura smiles, relieved and thankful, realizing she has finally made it. Her new life as a royal alchemist apprentice is about to begin. Laura bids farewell to Berta and Mercedes, thanking them for their help and promising to return in 3 years. Mercedes says she looks forward to it. Laura also says goodbye to Arnold, noting he's still unsociable even now. Mercedes assures Laura that Arnold has high hopes for her talent and is watching her progress. Arnold protests, claiming he was just complaining about Laura to his master, but Mercedes playfully insists he's looking forward to seeing how cute Laura will be in 3 years, highlighting their close bond. Luca watches Laura with a gentle smile. Laura smiles back, holding her drink, ready for the next chapter. Laura arrives excitedly at the royal castle for her first day as an apprentice alchemist, noting her parents came with her this time since successful candidates live in the castle. Her parents anxiously wait outside the exam hall and ask how it went. Laura beams, announcing she passed with a perfect score. Her master, Berta, parents, and Luca erupt in cheers and congratulations. Berta acknowledges Laura's hard work over the past 2 years. Laura reflects that her parents never questioned her dream, offering unwavering support, as her father pats her head, calling her their pride and joy. Laura hugs her mother, thanking them and promising to do her best, driven by the desire to become an alchemist, earn good money, and give her parents a better life. As she hugs her mother, a voice calls her name. Luca stands there, smiling gently. Laura pulls away from her mother and turns to face him, surprised. Luca congratulates her with a warm smile. Laura beams and thanks him, hugging him tightly. She teases him, asking if he wished she had failed, but he vehemently denies it, reminding her of similar thoughts he had 3 years ago. Luca smiles down at her. He embraces her again, sincerely congratulating her. Laura hugs him back, wishing him good luck. She acknowledges that, as childhood friends, this physical affection feels normal. She pulls back slightly, noting his changed eye level and voice, feeling the warmth of their hug linger, and realizing this is likely goodbye for a while. An official calls for Laura Ampere to come forward. Arnold Rocco stands waiting, now looking older, wearing glasses and the uniform of a royal compounder. Laura looks up, surprised to see Arnold waiting for her. She thinks he looks much older, perhaps due to the glasses, but reminds herself he's only 16, adults are 18 in this world, and that she, being mentally older, shouldn't be surprised. Arnold greets her coolly, informing her that Mr. Casper is calling for her and tells her to come quickly. Laura is impressed by his mature voice. As Laura starts to follow, Arnold stops her, turning to Luca and telling him to take care of Laura. Luca seems surprised. Arnold looks intently at Luca. Luca clarifies that Laura is just his dear childhood friend. Arnold and Luca stare at each other silently for a moment, Laura standing awkwardly between them. Arnold then dismisses Luca curtly, saying, "Hey," and turns to leave. Laura frantically stops him, realizing the two still don't get along. Laura quickly bids farewell to her family and Luca, promising to write, return on holidays, and send candy, urging everyone to take care. Her mother reminds Laura to take care of herself above all else, and Laura agrees. Laura promises Luca she'll write to him, and he promises to write back. As she turns to leave, Laura reflects on the passage of time. She left Emmy just before turning 7, and now, less than 3 years remain until Luca's fated journey begins. Although she hasn't heard of demons strengthening yet, she feels the time is steadily approaching. Luca watches her go, remembering her words from 2 years prior and reassuring himself he's fine. He recalls her plea for him to use his power to protect the village and everyone in it. He playfully argues with himself about who will miss the other more, concluding he definitely will. He smiles softly watching Laura leave. Laura promises herself she'll get vacation time when the seasons change and return to Emmy then. She looks forward to returning to her small, warm hometown filled with precious people. Arriving at Arnold's side, Laura apologizes for keeping him waiting, but he dismisses it, saying he was tired of waiting anyway. Laura apologizes again, explaining she tried to make her farewells quick, but Arnold cuts her off, saying no. He states coolly, 2 years is a long time, looking away from her. Laura is momentarily confused, thinking he meant he'd been waiting 2 years for her to become an apprentice, but realizes he couldn't have meant it literally. Playing along with his likely intended meaning, she asks with a slight tease, "Sorry to keep you waiting?" Arnold turns back, a small, almost imperceptible smile gracing his lips as he says, "Let's go." Laura is shocked to see him smile even slightly. She reflects that this is only the third time they've met, and she still doesn't really know what he's like. But she remembers Mercedes mentioning how fond she was of him and trusts that he's a good brother to Elvira. Laura smiles faintly, walking beside Arnold. From now on, her days as an apprentice royal alchemist will begin. She walks down the grand castle corridor alongside Arnold, thinking, we're finally side by side. Arnold leads Laura towards a section of the royal castle, announcing, we're here. He stops abruptly in a corridor lined with doors, and Laura looks up at him, puzzled. Arnold gestures vaguely towards one of the doors, making Laura wonder if he wants her to go inside and if Mr. Casper is waiting there. Without another word, Arnold turns and walks away, waving goodbye and saying, well, see you later. Laura calls out his name in confusion, thinking how unreadable he is. Left alone in the corridor, Laura notices a figure further down the hall. A girl with braided hair steps out, smiles brightly, and asks if Laura is one of the successful candidates. Laura confirms, and the girl excitedly introduces herself, revealing she also passed and is 14 years old. Laura realizes only 2 candidates passed this year. The girl introduces herself formally as Chelsea Gowrell, expressing her pleasure at meeting Laura. Chelsea asks where Laura is from. Laura explains she's from Emi, a small village in the middle of nowhere. Chelsea replies she's also from a remote village called Richmond. Chelsea enthusiastically describes the capital, mentioning the cute stores unlike those in the villages, and Laura agrees, adding there are many good food shops too. Chelsea seems nice. Chelsea suggests they explore the town together sometime, and Laura agrees, glad her fellow apprentice seems friendly, just as a door slams nearby. Casper bursts into the room, apologizing profusely for potentially keeping them waiting. Laura and Chelsea giggle at Casper's flustered entrance, and he greets them formally. Casper Klassen introduces himself as their boss and congratulates them both on passing the exam. He informs them they will start work as apprentice royal alchemists tomorrow, filling Laura with anticipation as her new life finally begins. Casper adds that first, they should say hi to Lena, gesturing towards someone entering the room. A young woman with blonde hair tied up introduces herself politely as Lena Bevelstam. Lena explains she's been assigned to train them, being their senior by 2 years. Laura calculates Lena must be 16. Laura and Chelsea introduce themselves. Lena smiles and says it's nice to meet them. Lena thinks Laura seems kind, then playfully asks if Laura is Arnold's girlfriend. Laura and Chelsea are both shocked by the question. Chelsea jumps in, asking Lena where she heard that and clarifying that Arnold is the renowned genius who became the youngest alchemist master last year after graduating, not an apprentice. Laura is stunned to learn Arnold is already a full-fledged alchemist master at such a young age. Lena questions Laura, asking if she didn't know and accusing her of lying about being Arnold's girlfriend. Laura frantically denies it, explaining their mentors were friends but they've only met a few times. Casper overhears and expresses surprise, saying he thought Laura had been Arnold's girlfriend for 2 years now. Laura realizes Casper must have misunderstood something long ago and asks where he got that idea. She mentally notes to be wary of Casper spreading strange rumors. Laura groans internally, realizing the source of the misunderstanding. Lena apologizes for the confusion, formally reintroduces herself, and offers to show them to their room. As they follow Lena, Laura feels slightly uncomfortable about Lena's reaction upon learning she wasn't Arnold's girlfriend, wondering if Lena perhaps likes him. Casper shows them into a spacious room with bunk beds and shelves, telling them they can furnish it as they like. He adds that Lena's room is next door if they need anything and advises them to take it slow today before leaving. Chelsea excitedly notes their luggage has already been brought in, and suggests they unpack first. Chelsea expresses her relief, admitting she was worried her classmate would be scary but is glad it's someone like Laura. She beams, saying she's really happy Laura is her classmate. Laura smiles back, touched by Chelsea's sincerity, reflecting that even though she's mentally older, leaving home was hard, and it must be tough for Chelsea too at only 14. Laura formally thanks Chelsea, saying she's glad they're classmates too. Chelsea happily agrees, suggesting they work hard together. A few days later, Lena instructs Laura and Chelsea during their alchemy training, telling Laura to let a mixture sit if its color changes. As Lena continues her explanation, someone knocks on the lab door. Arnold enters the lab. Laura greets him politely, thanking him for his hard work, but he curtly interrupts, asking what Ampere wants while they're in training. He holds up a beaker containing Laura's practice potion. Before anyone can react, Arnold drinks the entire contents of the beaker, shocking Laura and Chelsea. Laura, Chelsea, and Lena stare blankly as Arnold finishes the potion. Arnold lowers the empty beaker. He declares the potion disgusting and thrusts the empty beaker back at Laura. Laura smiles wryly, remarking that Arnold is still the same, recalling how his violent attitude frightened her when they first met. Arnold asks defensively, "What?" Arnold looks flustered by her comment. Laura observes him, thinking he's unsociable and proud, but also possesses the typical emotions of someone his age. Arnold abruptly grabs Laura's arm again, announcing he'll show her the castle's herb garden. Laura protests, startled by his suddenness and violence, thinking he's being too abrupt. As Arnold drags Laura out, Lena and Chelsea call out their thanks for his hard work, looking bewildered. Laura walks beside Arnold, silently fuming that the youngest genius royal alchemist has time to show an apprentice the herb garden. She asks him bluntly if he has a lot of time, and he admits he does, adding honestly that the herb garden is relevant to her future training. Laura then asks why he's taking the trouble to show her around personally. Arnold stops walking and remains silent for a moment. Laura immediately regrets her potentially rude question, realizing he's taken time for her. Arnold turns to face her, his expression serious. He states that he hopes to borrow her talents in the near future. Laura looks up at him, confused, repeating, "Talents?" Arnold looks away, his expression unreadable. He admits he doesn't know how to help her or what to do, but makes the cryptic statement, noting his expression seemed sad and uncharacteristic. Laura realizes Arnold has a clear goal in mind and is approaching her specifically to achieve it, though she doesn't know if she can help. She simply replies, "I'll do my best," accepting his vague request. Arnold looks down at her intently. He offers to show her around whenever he has time, and she thanks him politely. True to his word, Arnold gives Laura a detailed tour of the medicinal herb garden and even shows her where recovery medicines are sold in town. As they walk through town, a little girl thanks Arnold, calling him Big Brother, suggesting a kinder side to him. Laura reflects on Arnold's mysterious purpose. She feels grateful for his unexpected kindness and resolves to cooperate when that near future arrives. She still doesn't know what burdens he carries, remembering his earlier words about borrowing her talents. But she is certain of one thing. More than anyone else, Arnold is the person who truly recognizes her unique talent. Laura trains in the alchemy lab with Chelsea and Lena. It has been about 3 months since she became an apprentice, and she's slowly adjusting, though Arnold's cryptic words about needing her talents still linger, with no further explanation given. Lena calls out Laura's name, but Laura remains lost in thought about Arnold, having heard nothing more from him. Lena asks directly if Laura is close to Arnold, catching Laura completely off guard. Flustered, Laura clarifies their connection is only through their masters having a master-disciple relationship, wondering if maybe Arnold's master asked him to keep an eye on her. Lena studies Laura's reaction silently. Lena apologizes, then asks Chelsea to fetch a specific herb for her instead, adding she understands Laura might be busy. Laura realizes Lena likely intended to ask about Arnold but changed her mind. Lena admits it's not fair but asks Chelsea anyway, pointing out a difference in the requested herb. Lena then turns back to Laura and asks if she's heard anything about Arnold's magic. Laura is stunned, repeating the phrase, "Arnold's magic?" Lena admits she doesn't know much herself but thought Laura might have heard something, apologizing for the strange question. Laura denies knowing anything but admits she's curious. Lena reveals there are rumors that Arnold possesses very strong magical powers and might even join the Knight Order as a sorcerer. Lena adds it's no wonder, given his sister Elvira can use magic, and mentions she's also heard the Order of Chevalier already has a sorcerer in its ranks. Laura is bewildered by the idea of Arnold joining the Order as a sorcerer. Lena clarifies this rumor circulated before Laura and Chelsea became apprentices. Lena recalls the specific incident when Arnold was summoned by the Knight Commander. Laura admits she didn't know about that. Lena confirms Arnold didn't seem to be in trouble at the time. Lena vents her frustration, recalling how all the attention was on Arnold when she first arrived, constantly being compared to the youngest genius to become a full royal alchemist. She adds with annoyance that Arnold is also quite prudish. Lena throws her hands up, exasperated by how frustrating Arnold always is. Laura understands Lena's feelings, acknowledging it must be hard being compared to a genius like Arnold, realizing Lena's issue isn't romantic jealousy but professional rivalry. Lena recounts the time Arnold was summoned by the Knight Commander. Despite everyone buzzing about the genius, Arnold simply told her nothing when she asked what he wanted. Lena looks visibly irritated by the memory. Lena throws a small tantrum, declaring Arnold is annoying. Laura gently comforts her, remembering Lena is only 16 despite her mature demeanor. Lena calms down, admitting she felt foolish for getting worked up over why Arnold was called away, speculating maybe Lena was just curious about Arnold's friend, Laura, because she herself was intimidated when they first met and Lena asked about Arnold. Lena leans in conspiratorially, adding she later heard a rumor among the knights. She whispers the rumor. The knight commander himself directly asked the renowned genius Arnold Rocco to join the order as a sorcerer, emphasizing it's still just a rumor. Lena laughs bitterly at the unfairness, admitting she assumed Arnold lacked magic talent since he focused solely on alchemy, only for him to potentially excel at both. Laura feels lost, realizing Arnold, Lena, Chelsea, Casper, and others are essentially unknown characters to her, unlike the main cast of the game, making interactions difficult. Lena makes Laura promise to keep the rumor secret, which Laura readily agrees to, reflecting that this growing uncertainty about the future is exactly what she wanted. Laura smiles and confirms she understands. Laura contemplates Arnold's situation, potentially juggling being the youngest royal alchemist with being a gifted sorcerer for the Knight Order. She looks out the window towards the castle, a thoughtful expression on her face. Later, Chelsea notices Laura seems to be in a good mood. Laura happily explains that her childhood friend, Luca, is coming to visit tomorrow. The narrator reflects on sending a letter to Luca, stating that they had recently calmed down a bit and recalling Luca's past promise to visit sometime. The scene shifts to someone asking what kind of person Luca is, and the narrator remembers when they told Luca they couldn't get time off, he immediately said he would come to the royal capital to see them soon, making the narrator happy. The narrator describes Luca to the two girls, saying he's a very, very kind boy who always smiles warmly and helps the narrator a lot, realizing they'd never introduced him to anyone in this way before. They wish to be a good alchemist so Luca won't get hurt, adding that while it's a cliché, the adjective kind suits the future hero, Luca, better than anything else. The narrator decides their new goal is to find more meaning in the career they chose for selfish purposes, specifically if they can help Luca even indirectly. Their hope is to become a good apprentice alchemist and eventually be of help to Luca and his party members in the future. While walking in the city, the narrator sees a familiar figure in the distance and gasps in surprise. The figure turns, revealing it's Luca, and the narrator excitedly calls his name. The narrator runs up to him for a hug, exclaiming, "Long time no see," as Luca smiles and says, "Laura." Luca apologizes for the long trip and wishes he could have returned to the village instead, but Laura insists she's the one who wanted to come and is completely glad he is here, apologizing for bothering him on his day off. Luca smiles warmly, saying that just seeing the smiling faces of his childhood friends who came to see and support his dream warms his heart, feeling grateful. Laura points to something Luca is wearing and asks what it is, and he replies, "Of course. It's a good luck charm," which makes Laura happy to hear. Laura confirms that she also wears one, and Luca laughs, saying, "Of course," indicating they both wear the same good luck charm. Luca asks Laura how her studies are coming and she replies, "Not bad. Good," while a thought bubble mentions that Luca is staying at an inn in the royal capital tonight and will return to the village by carriage tomorrow. Luca simply says, "I see," and Laura suggests they have 2 days of fun. Laura offers to show Luca around, asking if there's anywhere he wants to go, admitting she doesn't know the city that well yet. Luca thinks for a moment, then says he wants to see the recovery pills, which surprises Laura. Laura is internally puzzled, thinking he's not asking for a restaurant or a grocery store, but he excitedly says, "I want to go," and she suggests they go to the stalls on the main street instead, asking if he wants to see the recovery pills there. Laura recalls that Arnault said a stall is better than a big tool shop because you can actually see the tools in your hands. Laura ponders why Luca wants those recovery pills. They arrive at a stall, and Luca's eyes sparkle as he happily exclaims, "Wow," surrounded by many bottles. Luca spots something and asks if one of the potions was made by Laura, as he had heard she was an apprentice, but Laura is surprised and says, "No way. I'm just an apprentice. I'm not ready for the market." Laura realizes Luca was asking to see the restorative potion she made, and he says he was glad that she said that, but asks her who told her about it. Laura is amazed by the thought of her healing potion being sold, and an older woman named Ms. Berta laughs nearby. Luca suddenly remembers and asks about their master, and how everyone else in the village is doing, mentioning he always sends letters. Laura tells him everyone is fine, explaining that Petra and the others were worried about him, but they were relieved after reading her letter. Luca says, "I see." Laura continues that her father and mother weren't well at first but are now looking forward to his letters, while Luca is surprised by an object labeled, which, and is told that someone made him carry it. Laura suggests they go eat, saying there's a nice place on the outskirts of town, and Luca thanks her, agreeing to eat together later. Laura says she often comes there alone on her days off and likes the panoramic view of the royal capital, pointing out the view at the end of the staircase. They stop on the staircase, and Luca calls out Laura's name, looking serious, saying he has something he needs to tell her, and Laura apologizes for interrupting. Luca then gravely reveals that the village was attacked by demons the other day. Laura looks at him in utter shock and fear, her eyes wide. She quietly echoes his statement, asking if the village was attacked. Laura realizes that with the village attacked by demons, the timeline for The Last Brave is definitely getting closer. The time until the demon lord's resurrection is quickly passing. Luca gently takes and holds Laura's hand. Luca reassures Laura not to worry, stating firmly that no one's been hurt. Laura, with a look of relief and distress, asks if Luca was the one who got rid of the demons. Luca confirms that his eyes lit up and he was able to take action, with the adults in the village also helping out, causing Laura to look surprised and upset, asking him if he got hurt. Laura recalls that this incident is an event she should know, specifically that Luca fought off a demon that attacked his village before he left as the hero, just like the villagers mentioned at the beginning of The Last Brave. Luca looks confused, wondering why Laura is thanking him, while Laura expresses relief and thanks him again for fighting off the demon. Laura looks down, solemnly realizing something she found out later. Luca reveals that the demons have become stronger, explaining that the magic protecting the village was merely weakened, not outright weak. Laura looks shocked, recalling she had heard that demons would become more powerful in the near future, and wonders if Luca actually remembered every word she had said. Laura realizes Luca must have thought her warning about the distant future was right. Laura expresses relief that Luca was there, noting that her parents said they had never seen a demon come into the village before. Laura concludes that the reason Luca didn't tell her about the demon attack right away was because he didn't want her to worry, which she understands, but she's concerned the people in the village must now be worried since Luca is gone. Luca touches his left eye, mentioning he's been having a bad feeling lately, like a sudden fever in his eye, all while Laura looks at him, reflecting on her powerlessness. Laura looks closely at Luca, questioning his statement with an eh. Luca observes that the color of his gold emblem seems to be getting a little darker, wondering if the brave is getting stronger, or if it's just his imagination, as Laura continues to stare at him. Laura stares at his face, thinking that his crest is the mark of a brave man who saves the world, but Luca pulls away slightly, asking what looking at his crest is supposed to prove. Luca states he is a body. Laura yells out, insisting she doesn't care about the crest or anything else, because Luca is Luca. Laura remembers her own survival thanks to Luca's power, and that everyone in the village is unharmed, which makes her admit that she does care about his power. Laura laughs, jokingly telling Luca to look at her, because if it weren't for him, she'd be dead. Luca looks at Laura and acknowledges that the reason he can be with her now and protect everyone is because of this power. Luca then firmly states he wants to use his power to protect everyone. Luca smiles gently, having accepted his role and power. Laura looks at him, seeing the determined face of the future hero who will carry the lives of many people. Laura wonders if she can truly help him as an alchemist. She considers the example of the master in The Last Brave, wondering if she can follow in their footsteps, and asks Luca a question. Laura is excited, realizing that as an alchemist master, she will be able to help the future heroes, feeling energized and ready to take action. Laura reflects that even though the path to becoming a royal alchemist was open to her, her goal has changed, and a road lies ahead that she does not know. She believes the path she is now following, which may be different from that of the last brave, is to ensure Luca returns to the village this time. Luca smiles, agreeing with Laura's suggestion for him to return to the village, saying, "That's good, and that everyone will be happy." Laura resolves that no matter what happens, she will do what she can so that they can always laugh like this. An image of a shield or crest, labeled HAP, is shown in the city. Luca tells Laura he will be right back after he unpacks at the inn, and Laura replies, "Yeah, I'll tell the shopkeeper," before he hurries off, promising to be fast. Laura sits at a table and looks at a menu, excited to finally be at this place, which is like a restaurant from her past life, and wonders what she will order, oblivious to a man's large hand reaching down. The narrator observes Laura's joy, noting that they knew it. A drunk man named Mr. Casper surprises Laura by addressing her and confirming that she is Laura. Laura is shocked, pointing out that Mr. Casper appears to have had too much to drink, while he bangs his hand on the table and claims he saw it. Mr. Casper's drunken expression fills the frame, suggesting a dramatic accusation is coming. Mr. Casper shouts, asking who the pretty blonde boy she was with around noon was, causing Laura to shriek in surprise and realize they had been seen. Laura is internally dismayed, thinking, "No way," as being questioned by a drunk Mr. Casper seems like it will lead to trouble. Mr. Casper loudly accuses Laura of two-timing, which causes her to recoil in utter shock and denial. Laura vehemently denies the accusation, declaring, "No, that's a total lie." Mr. Casper, holding his bottle, angrily mentions that she was with Arnold in the herb garden the other day, and insists that Arnold, a man who never accepted his boss's invitation, is only going to take care of Laura, believing this proves his point. Laura desperately asks if Mr. Casper is still harboring illusions about what happened with Arnold and considers running away before Luca returns. Mr. Casper, realizing something, lowers his voice and asks if Luca is her childhood friend, momentarily backing off from his two-timing accusation, before shouting in disbelief that Laura was with a beautiful boy she didn't even know. Suddenly, a new man, a knight, intervenes, startling both Mr. Casper and Laura, as he roughly shoves Mr. Casper, demanding to know what's wrong with him. Laura stares in shock at the sudden and forceful intervention. The knight, Vake, apologizes to Laura for the drunk man and tells her not to worry about it, while Mr. Casper mumbles he had been trying not to drink on his own. Vake is revealed to be a character Laura met 2 years ago, and she is internally panicking, realizing that he's a person Luca meets for the first time in the game at the Royal Castle, and wondering if Luca is still not coming. Laura recalls that Vake recognized Luca's abilities after a brief encounter and asked the king to accompany him on his journey, realizing she has already met Vake and Luca, and has already set her desired route, but believes it's a bad idea to bring them together right now. Vake recognizes Laura as the new apprentice alchemist. Vake loudly explains that there has been a lot of talk in the order about the most gifted girl since the start of the apprenticeship system joining them this year, a fact which Laura claims she did not know. Laura, embarrassed by Vake's praise, apologizes for the trouble and tells him she needs to leave right now, though she'd love to talk to him more. Vake apologizes to the landlady for making so much noise and is pulled away by Mr. Casper, who thanks the landlady profusely. Laura is left staring blankly after the dramatic scene. She reflects on how surprised she is that Mr. Casper gets drunk like that, murmuring Vake's name. Laura looks sadly at Vake's retreating form, noting there is still no wound on his face, but fearing he will be badly hurt within the next 2 years. Laura fears the event that creates the one-eyed knight she knew from the game will happen this very year. She tries to stop worrying about all the bad things that could happen if they had just met, and wonders if Mr. Casper and Vake became friends because they both like drinking, noting they seemed close when she met them 2 years ago. Laura hopes that if she sees Vake again, they can talk more next time. A dark, quiet forest scene is shown as evening approaches. The scene abruptly shifts to shadowy, beast-like figures in the forest, suggesting a threat. Laura and Luca are shown inside a brightly lit establishment, eating their meals and looking relaxed. A shocked Laura apologizes profusely, likely for the scene that just transpired. Laura waves her hands, looking frantic and embarrassed, telling the approaching Mr. Casper that's enough. Mr. Casper dramatically bends over, attempting to atone for his sins, but Laura stops him, saying it's unbecoming of a supervisor, adding that he seemed pretty drunk at the time. A man offers to smooth things over with some sweets, saying Mr. Casper won't be able to pull himself together, and Luca asks Laura what is wrong, while she is mortified remembering the drunken Mr. Casper getting involved with her the day before yesterday. Laura asks Mr. Casper if he and the knight, Mr. Vake, are on good terms, after confirming Mr. Casper and Vake were together the other day. Mr. Casper replies that he can't say he knows either way, but then asks Laura if she admires Mr. Vake, catching her off guard and making her internally admit that Vake is her favorite character in the game. Before she can answer, Luca, with a bright, excited expression, grabs her hand and declares he'll introduce her to Vake right now, while Laura shouts in surprise, asking about the training she's supposed to be doing. As Luca enthusiastically runs off, 2 of Laura's colleagues say goodbye, wishing her well, and Laura is mortified that her holiday with Luca is turning out like this, apologizing to the 2 colleagues. Laura thinks about the village having been attacked by a demon, which makes her believe she should try to get back to the village as soon as possible, but she still fondly recalls how fun her holiday with Luca has been. Luca and Laura arrive at an open training ground enclosed by a large wall and tower, where several soldiers are practicing with swords. Laura recognizes the place from the game as the training ground of the Knights of Chevalier, where Luca and Vake originally meet. Lord Casper, who has also arrived, greets a long-haired elf man, Mr. Olivel, and asks what is going on. Mr. Olivelle looks at Laura and recognizes her from 2 years ago, saying, "Ah." Mr. Olivelle smiles brightly, remembering her and congratulating her on passing the exam, and admits he always knew she would be accepted, believing she was a very intelligent young lady. Laura is pleased by the compliment, thinking that Mr. Olivelle still looks like a prince, but Mr. Casper butts in, accusing Mr. Olivelle, the vice commander, of being a natural seducer again. Mr. Casper introduces Laura to Vake, shouting that this girl has a crush on him, and Vake, who is in a simple white shirt and has a training sword over his shoulder, recognizes Casper and the girl from the other day and asks what is going on. Mr. Casper's realization that Laura has a crush on Vake is highlighted. Vake laughs heartily, saying Mr. Olivelle is so much more mature than Casper, and welcomes Laura, apologizing for the interruption to her work, while Casper shrinks in annoyance. Laura praises Vake as a truly pleasant person, saying she's becoming an even bigger fan, and he apologizes for being busy, explaining he is in the middle of training the young ones. Vake smiles, saying he cannot help her now but would love for her to watch them train. Vake then tells Mr. Olivelle to take care of the rest of the training, and Mr. Olivelle says, yes. Mr. Olivelle offers to show Laura around, asking if she'd like to go, and she internally questions if it is all right for her to be taking a break while Mr. Olivelle is busy, while Casper thanks him very much and promises to take full responsibility for Laura. Laura watches the soldiers training and asks if they practice so much every day, and a soldier replies that they continue to train to keep the country and its people safe. Laura thinks about the knight's great aspiration and life-threatening ambition to serve as volunteers, recognizing that unlike the alchemists, anyone can enter if they volunteer, and doubts she would have had such a life-threatening ambition if she were a man. Mr. Olivelle assures Laura, calling her by name, that they will protect her too, while she is internally worried that he seems to mislead a lot of women with this kind of charm, wondering if his atmosphere reminds her of someone else. Mr. Olivelle leads Laura to a room, telling her that it is the resting place of the group, a room full of bookshelves. Laura pulls out a book, looking at it curiously, and asks if it's a magic book. Mr. Olivelle confirms that some of the members of the Order of the Chevalier are magicians, explaining they aren't here because they stagger their training with the ordinary soldiers, and Laura realizes that joining the Order as a magician is a setting she did not know. Laura is surprised that she can actually look around, recognizing that there are both settings she knows and settings she does not know from the game, while Mr. Olivelle offers her tea. Laura stares intently at Mr. Olivelle's face. Laura, still looking shocked at the elven vice commander, wonders, what was this? An urgent messenger bursts into the room, shouting for the vice commander and reporting that there's a horde of demons in the Northwoods. Laura is shocked, wondering how such a large scale of demons, which she says is a scale never seen before, managed to get so close to the city. Mr. Olivelle immediately issues commands to the messenger, ordering the people of the city to evacuate to the royal castle right now and assigning the 4th to 6th Squadron to security duty, adding that he'll soon give orders to the rest of the squads. The messenger reports that the commander has already led the 1st squad out. Mr. Olivelle, now speaking to a man who confirmed his orders, states that the 2nd and 3rd squads are to accompany him, and the 7th and all subsequent squads are to wait at the northern gate. He then says he'll be out soon too. As the messenger runs off, Laura looks on, murmuring, demons? Mr. Olivelle has a grim look, thinking the attack is just like in the village. Mr. Olivelle turns to Laura, telling her the royal capital has been attacked by a demon never seen before. Mr. Olivelle asks Laura if she can go back to Mr. Casper alone, to which she agrees. Mr. Olivelle apologizes to Laura, saying he will have to show her around again, and as he leaves, she tells him to be careful. Laura closes her eyes, telling herself to calm down, recognizing the knights will probably need a recovery potion, and she needs to get back and make it. Vake is shown with a broad, determined smile, holding his weapon. Vake is now shown in a moment of distress, holding his head in his hands. Laura looks anxious and tearful, whispering that this is not good with this demon attack. Laura firmly dismisses that thought, reminding herself that now's not the time to think about it. She quickly makes her way back, and people in the streets are seen reacting to the news of the demon appearing. Laura runs through the hall, and her friend calls out to her, Laura. An apprentice alchemist grabs a panicked Laura, telling her that they know they have to make healing potions, but they have plenty in storage, so Laura and Chelsea should go to the refuge. Laura insists she will help them, even as the others try to usher her and Chelsea away toward the refuge. Another alchemist, Ampere, calls out to Laura and another apprentice named Lena, telling them to hurry up and prepare the recovery potions. The apprentice holding Laura protests, shouting that they have to get to safety, and asks Ampere what he is talking about. Ampere stresses that they need people, asking the girls what they will do if they run out of potions. The girls comply, and the apprentice who had been trying to lead Laura away calls out, "Chelsea," to which Chelsea replies, "Yes." Laura tells Lena to come with her as they head toward the herb garden. Ampere shouts over the counter for them to just make it. Ampere, already at work, tells Laura that if she doesn't have enough ingredients, she should pick some off the shelf, and Laura, holding a large bowl, quickly says, "Yes." Laura, holding a small herb, complains that if this were a game, it would be a one-button action, lamenting that she can't make them one by one, especially since the more potent the potion, the more work it takes. She looks at the large bowl of herbs, recognizing she has never tried to make them at the same time but knows she has to. Laura clenches her fist, affirming this is why she has been studying all this time. Laura works intensely, while Ampere asks her how much potency she needs and how much of the potion she needs to make. Laura smiles, feeling immense pressure, knowing there is no time to stop and think. Ampere, concentrating on pouring a liquid, asserts that they simply need to make as many as they can. Laura is busy organizing the finished potions, looking relieved as she puts the bottles into the third box. A wounded man, seemingly returning from the front line, appears at the door, asking if they have any recovery potions. Laura cries out in surprise upon seeing the man's severe injuries, noting he's back from the front. The man is handed 2 boxes of recovery potions and says thank you. Laura realizes that the fact the injured man had to come all the way to them means there were not enough supplies in storage to cover his recovery, telling herself that the man should drink one of the potions himself. Laura realizes the wounded man is Mr. Arnold and shouts his name in concern, knowing that despite everything, they still have to make it. Laura looks up in shock as a severely injured commander is helped into the room by Mr. Olivelle, and she looks on anxiously along with Ampere. Laura gasps in terror and covers her mouth, recognizing the wounded man as the Knight Commander, and sees Mr. Olivelle's own weary face. The injured man is Vake, who manages a strained smile despite his wounds, and Laura looks on in horrified shock. Laura realizes the injury is to Vake's right eye, and she thinks, no way, as she recalls that the seriousness of the injury, and whether it will cause loss of sight, is still unknown. Mr. Olivelle, visibly frustrated, exclaims that the demons are too hard for his sword to penetrate and insists they need a good magician. Laura looks at Ampere, realizing he is Arnold and that he is a powerful magician. Laura internally protests, recalling the rule that apprentices are not allowed to mix without the presence of another alchemist. Laura looks horrified as Ampere asks, "What?" as she contemplates the risk of breaking the rules. Ampere asserts that he will grant special permission for one apprentice to mix alone and takes full responsibility for breaking the rules. Laura cries out, "Yes," as Arnold quickly runs off, leaving his cloak. Laura looks on as Arnold runs off, realizing a magician on the battlefield is needed. Laura, kneeling before the injured Mr. Olivelle, insists that he must be treated first and hands him a potion, asking him to drink it, and he thanks her very much. Mr. Olivelle drinks the potion. Laura watches, aghast as the potion seemingly failed, but Mr. Olivelle sighs in relief. The wounds on Mr. Olivelle's chest begin to shine brightly as the healing process takes effect. Laura is stunned, realizing that this is the first time she's actually given an injured person a recovery potion, and watches the wound disappear, while Mr. Olivelle smiles, telling her he knew she was an excellent alchemist and offering her more if she needs it. Mr. Olivelle gently pushes her hand away, assuring her that he is all right now and that she can use the remaining potion for the other soldiers, which surprises Laura. Laura is shocked, realizing he is going to return to the front line even though he is still not fully recovered. Laura brings her hands to her cheeks, looking overwhelmed and emotionally affected by the events unfolding. Laura, holding a plant, looks out the window, looking at the city, repeating to herself that she has to make it, as someone announces the Knight Commander Vake has returned. Laura is relieved, saying, "Good, you're back, Vake." A close-up shot of a small bottle lying on the floor is shown, suggesting it's the item she'll use to help. Laura runs quickly across the floor of the room, heading to where Vake would be. The royal castle is shown under a dramatic, cloudy sky. The narrator's eyes open as she regains consciousness. Laura is shown waking up in a bed, looking disoriented. She sits up, murmuring that she is surprised this is happening, and notices Arnold standing nearby. Arnold confirms that she is awake and explains she collapsed in the mixing room but that nothing was wrong, she was just asleep. Laura realizes the sound of Vake's return must have finally allowed her to relax, which is what reassured her. Laura, still concerned about the injured knight, asks about Mr. Vake, and Arnold confirms Vake is still alive but lost the sight in his right eye and must be on absolute bed rest for a while. Laura pictures a serious, determined Vake, now wounded. Laura lowers her head, saying that she understands. Laura wonders if she could have avoided Vake's injury if she had told him about his predicted fate. She realizes she didn't tell him because she was scared and believed that changing his fate might affect his future, acknowledging that Vake is an important person in this world. Arnold tells Laura he is sorry for her troubles but assures her that without her concoction, the damage would have been far more extensive. Laura worries about Arnold, asking if he is all right since he broke the apprentices are not allowed to mix alone rule, explaining the decision was her idea. Arnold smiles, asserting that he was actually complimented on a job well done for having an apprentice mix the potions by herself. Laura decides she can ask Arnold a question, though she acknowledges that he has just come back from the front. Laura asks Arnold what made him want to become an alchemist, noting that he has very strong magical powers. Arnold explains that although he had a lot of magic and was good at offensive magic, he had no talent for restorative magic, causing Laura to ask why he didn't just master attack magic. Laura quickly apologizes for asking such a personal question. Arnold, unbothered, asks Laura if she knows what self-destructive disease is. He explains it's a disease unique to this world where a person's own magical power somehow causes damage to their own body. Arnold further explains the disease's manifestation, including the sudden onset of fire and physical damage to tissues and body parts. The disease is currently incurable, its symptoms start slowly like a cold, and eventually, the victim is burned to death by the internal fire, leaving nothing behind. Laura recalls that she remembered the disease from the shock of seeing it mentioned in her alchemy literature. Arnold reveals his sister has the disease, and Laura tells him she knows about it, but is stunned. Arnold then states his sister's name is Elvira. Arnold explicitly states that Elvira has the self-destructive disease. He explains that because he didn't have the gift of restorative magic and wanted to cure her, he became an alchemist. Laura realizes that Elvira is Arnold's sister and a member of the Last Brave party, specifically naming her as Elvira Kachiko. Laura, in sudden panic, realizes Elvira goes on a journey with Luca and his friends to save the world about 3 years later, linking this to the self-destructive disease. Laura is shocked as Arnold tells her he's counting on her, too, revealing his plan for the development of a special medicine for self-destructive diseases. Arnold looks directly at her, stating that he wants to borrow her talent. Laura looks startled, realizing this is what his whole conversation was about. Laura thinks Arnold is not lying, but notes that there was no such thing as self-destructive disease in the setting game. She realizes that even if his sister is suffering from the disease, Elvira leaves with Luca and the others about 3 years later. Laura clenches her hands, recognizing that the hero's journey is going to be very different from the journeys of the heroes she's known, but reminds herself that she did say she would do her best. Laura looks troubled and determined. Arnold looks at Laura, adding, "On top of that,